live. Okay. Well, first, welcome everyone. We're going to go ahead and start our meeting and call the meeting to order. Right now it's 5:28. So first, you all, I would like to take a moment of recognition and silence for community members, staff and a former board member that we lost recently within the past week. So the first is Mr. Don Roberts. The second is
Ms. Hatter, I'm sorry, it's Mr. Don Phelps.
I'm sorry, I'm thinking of the school. I apologize. Mr. Don Phelps, as well as Miss Faye Sutherland, and Miss Faye Sutherland was a former board member from back in the 80s, and our last staff member was Tina. I'm sorry. Neil. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And so we lost them within the last week, and so if we could just take a moment of silence to pay respect and recognition to Don Phelps, as well as Tina Neal and Miss Faye Sutherland. Thank you all for taking that moment of silence. Now we will open our meeting. I'm going to turn it over to Leanne Wilson to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Leanne Wilson.
Yes. I will be leading the Pledge of Allegiance tonight, and to be honest, it has been quite some time since I have said it. So I hope you guys will join me at home. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Thank you for leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I am going to, so I hope you guys are ready, directors. I'm going to pick one of you guys for a 15-second word of inspiration to open up our meeting. So with that, I will say Jeff Wood.
Well, Leanne makes it easy tonight. I want to give props to Leanne for being able to cite the Pledge of Allegiance on notice. Did way better than the Los Angeles city director that tried to do it earlier this week and didn't know the words to the Pledge of Allegiance, so good job, Leanne. I would also give a shout out to teachers and staff that are working so hard right now. As coronavirus continues to be an issue everywhere, it's not escaping Little Rock, it's not escaping LRSD. Some bold decisions are being made, but I appreciate their leadership, their continued concern for the safety of our kids and our staff, and also the extra work they're putting in to continue to deliver education as well as they can during this time. So I don't think that there's a more appropriate thing to recognize right now than the hard work that teachers and staff alike are putting in right now.
Awesome. Thank you, Director Wood. I'm going to, from here on out, you guys, there will always be a word of the month. And so the word of the month this month is unity. And so when we think about, or when you think about unity, I want you to reflect on what does that mean, not only from a self standpoint, but from a community and global standpoint. And when we're talking about unity, a collective work of action. And also and then I will give you the sneak peek for next month word, since it's in a couple of days. It will be a self determination. So so in February, think about that. And at the at a board meeting, I'm going to ask in February, what does that mean, and what did you do around that, looking at it from a community standpoint. Also, you guys, today, I don't know if you guys are aware, today is January 28th, 2021. And on January 28th, 2015, our Little Rock School District was taken over by the state because we had 6 failing schools, which was about less than 15% of our district. And today, on January 28th, 2021, we are now here as a board, a 9-member elected board. And so I do want us just to take 5 seconds and 6 seconds and to reflect on that. And then we're going to go into our meeting, and I'll be back in 6 seconds. All right. Thank you, Little Rock, for joining us right as we are your school board for the Little Rock School District. There have been some hot topics in the news. HB 1218 as well, which talked about changing the way that curriculum and instruction is happening or will happen. That is a bill that been revised to try to limit it to instruction and not extracurricular activities. And you guys, I want you guys to start to think about how Little Rock have played a very pivotal role within civil rights. And as a district, even though we do not consider ourselves a civil rights district, we are in a civil rights district and city. So so moving forward, that is just something I just want you guys to just kind of think about. The next thing on our agenda, I'm going to turn it over to our superintendent for our consent items.
Thank you, Ms. Hatter. Our consent agenda tonight consists of really 3 different items. There are the donation of property, the minutes, and the personnel changes. As you look and consider these, you can accept them as an entire package, or you could decide to say that you'd like to make a recommendation to move one and separate it into more of a discussion. We have had great support and participation from board members by you reviewing your packet, and there were adjustments that were made on the minutes, and we appreciate Mr. Adams, Director Ms. Noland, and Ms. Wilson for sharing comments about the minutes that needed to be adjusted. Probably the most significant change on the minutes that you received today as an adjustment is Ms. Noland highlighted the fact that the January 14th meeting was in fact an action item because we passed the COVID resolution leave. And so we needed to capture that to share your vote and put that into a minutes. And so that was sent to you this morning. And I know that that's a little bit awkward, but we also, wanted to make sure that we got everybody's input on our previous meeting and then had those kind of come at you all at one time. And we're hopeful that you will accept it. And really, it's up to you now to determine whether you accept this as a package. Obviously, once somebody makes a motion initially on this, on consent to approve it, and there's a second, there can be some discussion on this item if need be. Thank you, Ms. Hatter.
Thank you. Okay, so before I go to the board to see if there is a motion to accept our consent items, I do want us to be mindful of time, and then if someone have mentioned or said something along the lines that convey your point or your line of thinking, if we could figure out a way to say ditto or whatever your word will be, our thoughts, to where we are able to keep our meetings within, as reasonable time frame as possible with a 9-minute, 9-member board. So, given that fact, we're going to have a nice sized meeting anyway. So, right now we're on the consent items for approval, and those things have been broken out, which are is there a motion?
I move we approve the consent items.
I second the motion.
Okay. Do we have ayes? Yes. Do we have anybody opposed? Okay. So that our consent items have passed, and we will move forward with our agenda, and we will turn it over to Superintendent Poor for administration, which will have the district celebrations and PPC, as well as a public comment. We have one public comment, which is Teresa Knapp Gordon, president of the LREA, which is the Little Rock Education Association. So Superintendent Port, district celebrations.
Thank you so much. And of course, we always look forward to bringing these celebrations towards you. And we really have some just amazing things, and even one that occurred late this afternoon that is late breaking, and we inserted into our slide deck. So to first begin, we are going to have our BIPS coordinator, Tammy Blaylock, share two partners that are really doing some amazing things within our community. And we always try to bring these forward to you too, so that you can understand the good work that's being done collectively as a community. And so I'm going to turn it to Ms. Blaylock, who will introduce our two partners and the impact they're having in our schools. Ms. Blaylock? Tammy, we're not hearing you right now.
Thank you for the reminder. I appreciate that. Mr. Poor, President Hatter, and members of the Little Rock School District Board of Education, it's a privilege for me to be with you tonight. My name is Tammy Blaylock, and I serve as the coordinator for Volunteers in Public Schools and Partners in Education. And with me tonight also is my colleague, Jackie Merrill. Jackie, give them a wave so they'll know who you are. It is always our privilege to share with you the celebrations of our district, and partnership is one of them. And the BIPS Board of Directors and staff would like to extend our appreciation to each of you for allowing us the opportunity to highlight just a few of our fabulous community partners each month. So first, tonight, allow me to introduce a partnership between Cloverdale Middle School and the GEMS program. And I know we have representatives from both the school and the GEMS program. Officer Pfeiffer, are you with us? And I think Principal Wanda Ruffins is with us as well.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay,
hello, everyone.
We want you to know that GEM stands for Girls Empowered by Mentoring Sisterhood, and it's a program that was initiated through the Little Rock Police Department. And Officer Pfeiffer, would you just like to give them a brief summary of your program?
Yes, ma'am. So what we do is we mentor middle school and high school age girls at any school, but we're blessed to be housed out of Cloverdale is one of our schools. We're in our 6th year running. We just forgot to fill out our paperwork. And it's for all girls, regardless of their background, their social, economic status, trying to build bridges between us and the community, because it is police officers that mentor them, as well as everyday women, and that we call them our jewels. And our jewel stands for Just Everyday Women Exemplifying Leadership Skills. So not only do we take girls by recommendation and word of mouth, but we also accept mentors. So if you know any woman that you feel like would be an awesome mentor, please have her call me, 414-7771.
I love the PSA. That's great. And Ms. Ruffins, are you there? I know you would like to say thank you.
Thank you very much, and we are honored to house the GEM program at Cloverdale Middle School.
Yes. And they have been active in the district for several years. They've previously done work at Henderson, McClellan, and other schools. So thank you very much, both of you, for being here and giving us opportunity to spotlight you. Okay.
Thank you.
Our second partnership is with the West Central Community Center, and I believe we have some representatives. Mr. Calvin Maxby, I believe you're with us. Is any others from the Central West Central Community Center with us tonight? I know Miss Doris Wright, Ward 6 City Director, was a big proponent of this partnership, and I can easily see why, because they offer some outstanding programs for our youth, and they not only wanted to serve one school, but they wanted to offer this to the entire school district, which we applaud them for. They have extensive sports and extracurricular activities, and one of their major motivations was also to offer a place where our students could acquire community volunteer service credit. And of course, we as advocates of volunteer service really were proponents of them doing that. Mr. Maxby, would you say a few words with us? Share a few words. Calvin, are you there? Can you hear me? You may not have a good connection.
I would like to say, while he's trying to log on, but we were going to hold our annual recognition event at this community center in the spring. Obviously, those plans became changed, but they were amazing to work with. And if you have not seen that facility, do yourself a favor and go by there. It is a true gem. It is great for the neighborhood. It is great for the community. They do so many things, from after school to summer programs, even some economic planning training. They give some students some jobs in the snack bar so that they can get their first paycheck and really learn how that works. Bird watching. I mean, it is an amazing, amazing place. And then, not to mention, there are senior citizens that are doing things there during the day. So it is truly a community space. So please go by there and check out that the West Community Center. It is an amazing place.
Thank you, Jackie. So again, we appreciate the opportunity to give you these highlights. I look forward to next month. We will keep it as brief as possible, but please always join me in extending a word of appreciation to these individuals and groups that partner with our district. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Merrill, Ms. Blaylock, and we appreciate their leadership. And of course, we thank our partners for the impact they're having in our community, and they're making a tremendous difference. We thank the Little Rock Police Department and City of Little Rock with the West Central Community Center. So now we're going to move on to some of our other partners and I know, board members, I've actually had some of you say, please, Mike, make sure you share what's going on, because we just keep hearing good things about our vaccine program. So the first slide that you're going to get to see is actually people getting shots in their arm. And this is happening at Central, at Horace Mann. We had shots taking place today for the vaccine at the Metro campus. And, things have just gone really wonderful. If we go to the next slide, this really captures more of the data end of it. And we will send this slide to you as board members, because I just think you're going to be impressed with it. First off, if you look over to the right-hand side, these are the people that are our partners that are making this happen. And we've had these group of pharmacies and hospitals step up. The hospitals are Arkansas Children's and Baptist Health. Our pharmacies are more of the local groups of Cornerstone Pharmacy, Don's Pharmacy, and Park West Pharmacy. And then, of course, Kroger Pharmacy, which is a larger chain. All of these folks have made it possible. Now, look at the statistics on the left. we have 2,500 of our employees that have completed the survey at this point. That's as of this past Sunday. And obviously there probably are some more that came in during the course of this week. Out of that 2,500 people who have participated in the survey, we now have 86% of those employees saying they want the vaccine, which is really fantastic. And then out of that 86% that want the vaccine, we now have 1,600 employees who've got their first round shot, which basically means everybody who did the survey at the time that it was asked to be completed, and we gave well over a week for them to put in, we have all those people with shots in the arm by the end of business tomorrow. So we're finishing off that group of the first round, but we've actually moved towards the second round because some of you might remember the initial number was 1,400, but we're actually going to be at 1,600 by the end of the week. So we've exceeded that first phase, and we're actually moving into some of the folks that came in later, and we have about 200 to 300 more people to get vaccinated next week that had turned their survey in a little bit late. Nurses are now on their second shots. We're about 60% of them that will have their second shots. Please know that the POC team does keep track of everybody who needs to get their second shot and when it's going to happen, and we already have the vaccines prepared for those folks. By the end of this week, we will, again, we've already covered that point, I'm sorry. And then the very bottom bullet is that we are working to get those last 200 in. So this is really a tribute. And the final thing is you had the POC team on with us the last two meetings, Ron Self, Margot Bushmeyer, Christine Duhlman. Also our nurses have been really impactful on this effort. And finally, just our staff in general to be receptive to making sure that they go do everything they can to get immunized or get the vaccine. So this is really fantastic and just one of those big celebrations that I knew you'd want to see. Next.
Mr. Poor, I'm going to interrupt you for just a moment. I am so sorry, but I just want to say thank you from the board. I don't think the general public may realize how much work you and your staff have put in to the numbers that we just saw. And so I just it's very important to stop and say thank you, because that is a huge success for our district to be able to reach those numbers and those milestones so quickly. We've seen statewide and nationwide news stories about the difficulty people are having getting vaccines. And so for you all to be able to produce successful numbers like that on such a short period of time, I really appreciate it. And I wanted to make sure we got a chance to say thank you.
Well, I appreciate
Director Londa.
I appreciate Ms. Nolan. And one of the things I'll tell you is that even like this weekend, we ran into, some of the local pharmacies saying we don't have any more to provide. And we turned to bigger partners like Baptist and Children's, and they helped pick up some of the slack. And so when you get a call from Troy Wells at Saturday night about 9:30 saying, how can we help? Who's the CEO of Baptist? That's a pretty good feeling, that we have that kind of connections and that kind of support. And so we do thank the larger hospitals for assisting us. I'll move on to the next slide. And, when we get to board recognition, you're going to have a little bit of you're going to get your book as you come by, board members, because today was the start of our One Rock, One Book. We have a little bit different name than we've had in the past, but the One Rock really, I think, represents everything that we want to be as a district, okay, kind of connected and united. And of course, reading is something that we want to do. And that whole thing started today, and we are all reading a book called Billy Scher, Kid Entrepreneur. And so there was a video and there was a kickoff assemblies at every elementary today. And so the excitement of children getting a book and taking it home, and there's activities that are planned from now all the way through March. And there will be Shark Tanks, there will be inventions and creations and art and music project. I mean, you name it, the gamut. And we have so many of our staff that have put a lot of effort into this to push us forward, but we couldn't do this without our partners. And so as Pam moves us to the next slide, oops, I almost forgot, she'd been mad at me. Can't forget to hashtag this, because we want, the wonderful stories and the pictures. So Ms. Nolan, as you read to your kids, hashtag us on hashtag LRSD One Rock, One Book, or Director Wood also has kids hashtag be sure to read. let's just make sure that we push out the wonderful stories that come from an effort like this. Again, the effort can't happen without our wonderful partners. And so if we go to the next slide, there are several of these partners that have been with us all 5 years. That would include Club 99, Rotary, Arvest Bank, and Southwest Power Pool. And they have been substantial investors. Each of those groups give $10,000 to go towards the purchase of the books. Economics Arkansas has been a right bias creating the delivery and the support systems, and they do a wonderful job of working with all of our educators. Clinton Presidential Center has been with us from the get-go as well. Newer partners that have kind of filtered in the last 3 years, Museum of Discovery, which you'll see the video that I did. I got to be in the Museum of Discovery and playing. I had a good time. Your superintendent played last week as he got to do the video. We have the Innovation Hub and the Venture Center. All these things make sense with a book like this. And final thing, this book is a series, so families and kids can continue to read it. And a lot of times, young people like that they get to continue to read. We will use this book also, one of its phases, as a part of the summer reading program. Next, we are delighted with the Presidential Scholar Nominees. This is just the start of that process. Really, there's only 2 people in our entire state that will get picked for a Presidential Scholar recognition. But Central High had 10 people, the most out of any high school in the state, that were in the running to be selected for one of the top 2. And we look at these names, and I know that some of you will recognize the families or be able to then go round back to them. And of course, we take pride in this because of the recognition these young people are getting, but also the fact that we know that the partnership between us and those children's parents and our staff is making this all kind of come together. But obviously, these are talented young people, and if you see any of them, please give them a shout out or reach out to their family. Next, we also have the Clinton Center share with us this week their presidential leaders. And this presidential leaders actually has from around the region that get to access it. In fact, the entire state. We had several of our students that were recognized. I think we had 1 student from Central and 4 from Southwest Little Rock. And so you have Andrew Baker, you can see, I don't know if you can see my cursor going over it, but Andrew Baker. And then on this screen, you also have Michaela Washington. On the next slide, you're going to see 2 other of our students, Tarintia Phillips and Monty Smith from Little Rock Southwest. So congratulations to those young people and their families, their parents. We honor and recognize you as being a part of a Clinton Center presidential leadership group. Next, this was huge, 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 huge. And we all say, you know, Stacy McAdoo, T-O-Y, because she is our Teacher of the Year. Just 2 years ago, she was the state Teacher of the Year, got to serve on the school board last year, state school board. And now, yesterday, I believe, or Wednesday, she was recognized as a part of the PBS crew that brought home 3 National Public Media Awards. And Stacy McAdoo was one of them that was received an honor. So we're going to find multiple ways to kind of recognize this, because this is a big, big deal. It's blown up on social media if you follow Twitter and follow either Ms. McAdoo's Twitter account or mine. And Stacy McAdoo is such a talent, and we're so thrilled to have her. She's helping this year as she transitioned back into the district with support to all of our new teachers, as well as she is in the Excel program that helps prepare young people to become teachers. And so what better spot for a Teacher of the Year? And then congratulations to Ms. McAdoo. The Poor Man on the Roof campaign is ready to kick off. In fact, it has kicked off. It started on January 19th and continues all the way to February 5th. We had a wonderful news conference at St. Mark Baptist. That's our partner. As most of you are aware, this time of year ends up where most of our pantries really suffer from a lack of support and food donations. There's a lot of great donations that occur during the holidays, and then it kind of dwindles in January, February. So the intent has always been with Poor Man on the Roof to kind of help fill that gap. St. Mark Baptist does a wonderful job. You can see Pastor Pointer and Pastor Hersey that are there that are helping us with this. They do meals for the homeless during the day, and they also package food products to go out to the community kind of like in boxes each week. The little young man and the 3 students that are physically present, those 3 are individuals that were part of Stevens Elementary, and they have predicted that February 10th is going to be the coldest day. So that's the day my office has to be filled up. Now, if you go to long range forecasts like I do on an everyday basis, right now it says it's going to be 60, but the next day is 45. And remember that they had to pick this 2 months ago. So, you know, it's a challenge, but they're part of picking it. And then the next slide, this young lady is Miss Nelson, who is the winner of the art contest. I really appreciate the fact that she gave your superintendent just a tad bit of hair and maybe a little mustache. Love the suit that she's put me in. And so she won the marketing campaign. So we get kids involved, and we had a social media contest to see who would be the winner. And Miss Thomas came out ahead. She's a student at Forest Heights Elementary. And then the kickoff itself was just a whole lot of fun. We had a wonderful time kind of pushing everything out. And then finally, excuse me, we have multiple ways in which you can really help us. So the first one, you see box number 1, we need food donations. We need to fill my office. Every year we try to work to fill my office and get it so that it's just packed. Last year we not only packed my office, but we packed out the office of Jasmine and where Michael Hutchinson sits. And this year we'd like to go into Mr. Bailey and to Dr. Owa's office. We want to just have a humongous effort so people can donate food items. And by the way, one way that people can donate right now is at Kroger, is our new partner. They agreed this year to have food bins at every one of their Kroger stores for the next 2 weeks. So as you stop by, you can easily make a donation there. But of course, we really count on the kids bringing in food donations from their schools. And you'd be thrilled with some of the schools that have some of the toughest economic challenges are some of the biggest givers, which I think really says a lot about our community. Second is we need items that are toilet. I should do number 2 is financial. And our idea on the financial is we'd like to get $1 for every kid. Board members, that's all we ask. We want you to donate $1. And you can do that in a couple different ways. On the bottom there, you can see that you can do a direct with pay app, Poor Man on the Roof. If you don't have that, you can easily scan the barcode and that will be set up, or you can go to the district's URL code and donate there. So there's multiple ways that people can donate. We actually received a $1,000 donation last week from First Security Bank to go help us. That money will be, half of it will go to our Bright Futures program, which takes care of needs. The 25% of it will go to the VIPS program, and the other 25% will go to St. Mark Baptist for their Tindaji program, which is a support to students that are struggling. Finally, box number 3 is we need toiletries, and those go to our Bright Future program. Last year we got over $2,000 worth of toiletry items, shampoos, toilet paper, toothbrush, soap, all those things all make a difference. And we do need those boxes separate from the food items because they go to 2 different places. The pantry is located at Stevens Elementary, and all this is off and going. We need you to contribute. Board members, I'm looking forward to having you up on the roof with me on February 10th. So if you've never done it before, that's a good reason to do it, okay? You will love it, and let's hope it's just freezing cold, and what's better than getting a bald man on the roof? So here's the next big surprise. This is huge. Okay, hot off the press. Some of you know this young lady. Oops, we're missing a slide, Miss. There she is. This is Miss Tania Kelly. Many of you have got to hear or see her perform. Miss Tania Kelly is a student at Central High. She also has been a part of the Art Porter Music Education Program. She's been a part of our convocation programs. She sang at Easter Sunrise. She's done national anthems, even at the Washington National baseball team. She is a face within Little Rock, a talent within our school system. And guess what? She's going to be on American Idol on February 14th. So everybody's got to tune in on February 14th to see Tania perform. Next, we get to honor all of you. And so you see a proclamation there that you all are going to receive in your gift bag. We have a little swag bag for you. And board members, when you get the chance, call Michael, and you can do a drive-by, and he will provide you everything from the One Rock, One Book to some other goodies that we have for you, as well as a proclamation. But I want to read the proclamation that came from our governor, and then we have a short video that I think you're really going to enjoy. The Governor Hutchinson said, "Greetings. Whereas education is of paramount importance to the future of the state of Arkansas and the nation, with over 478,000 children attending 1,130 public and charter schools in Arkansas. The mission of the public schools is to meet the diverse educational needs of all children and to help each student become a productive citizen, contributing to a democratic society. Local school boards must be committed to the success of our children as they work to ensure that every child thrives with educational programs tailored to meet his or her individual needs. And whereas Arkansas school board members contribute countless hours to fulfilling their roles and responsibilities and setting the mission for their districts, establishing and enforcing policies, overseeing school district finances to assure alignment with academic and facility needs and goals, hiring and evaluating superintendents, and approving the selection of curricula to make certain that students are offered and taught required courses of study. And whereas school board members are required to participate in annual training to enhance their knowledge and skills to build and better serve their students and communities. And whereas there's more than 1,500 local school board members in Arkansas who receive no compensation for their time and effort they contribute on behalf of their schools. Now, therefore, I, Asa Hutchinson, Governor of the state of Arkansas, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the laws of this state, do proclaim January 2021 as Arkansas School Board Month. And with that, we have a very special video to kind of end this tribute to all of you. Ms. Smith?
Good afternoon. Many of you may not realize, but January...
We're not hearing the sound, Ms. Smith.
Where throughout this country we celebrate boards education for local school districts for their service. This is a position that doesn't bring in any kind of remuneration, any type of money, compensation for these people, and they put in a lot of hours. We're so grateful that we have a Little Rock board, and we have 9 wonderful directors that are here to represent our community. And we know that one of the main reasons that each of them ran was their love and passion for young people. And so what better way to honor each of our 9 directors than to have students say something about each one of our board directors.
Hello, my name is Eric and I'm in the 4th grade at Booker Arts Magnet. Here is Michael Mason, Zone 1. He is an equal opportunity specialist.
Hi, my name is Zoe. I'm in 3rd grade at Booker Arts Magnet. This is new board member Sandrika Morning from Zone 2. She is a program manager.
Hello, my name is Maya, and I am in 4th grade at Booker Art Magnet. I'd like to introduce you to board member Emily Conway. Zone 3, Ms. Conway was a retired teacher.
Hi, my name is TJ and I'm a student at Booker Arts Magnet. I'm in 5th grade this year. This is newly elected board member Lien Wilson. She represents Zone 4. Ms. Wilson is a social worker.
Hello from Booker Arts Magnet. My name is Camille and I'm in the 5th grade. This is the new school board member Allie Nolan from Zone 5. Mrs. Nolan is a lawyer.
Hi, my name is Amaya and I'm in the 4th grade at Booker Arts Magnet. I'd like to introduce you to a board member, Vicky Hatter. Ms. Hatter is a fleet management professional.
Hi, I'm Jada, also from Booker Arts Magnet. I'm in the 4th grade this year. Let me introduce you to Norma Johnson, the new board member representing Zone 7. Ms. Johnson is a state employee specialist.
Hello, my name is Tristan and I am in the 5th grade at Booker Arts Magnet. I drew this portrait of Greg Adams, the newly elected board member for Zone 8. Mr. Adams is a social worker.
Hi there, my name is Jaden, and I'm in the 5th grade at Booker Arts Magnet. This is a portrait of Jeff Wood. He is the new school board member for Zone 9. Mr. Wood is a lawyer.
I hope each of our board members loved the video tribute that our students did. We've also included a wonderful gift bag for each of our board members in just recognition of their service. We thank them for taking the risk of being leaders in our community, taking the risk of running for office, and now working to fulfill the pledge of being servant leaders within our school district and in Little Rock. They're already making a difference, and I'm excited to get to work with each of them, and we thank them for their service.
And board members, I want to tell you that
That was good. That was
That was great. We're all crying.
That was good. Oh, that was
Thank
good.
you.
Oh,
That was so nice.
we might want to just end the meeting right now
Right,
and just
yes.
end on a high note, but
Let's have our moment.
you all will receive your portraits too, and so you will get those as a part of your swag bag when we get those together. So thank you, and I want to thank Pam Smith for her efforts in helping put this all together. She does a tremendous job for us, and I love seeing all of your faces as the video was playing. So it was a good moment for me too, and I'll turn the meeting back over to Ms. Hatter.
Well, thank you. That was a great highlight in the way to help start our meeting. It is always a delight to see community engagement and involvement and hearing from our students. So we have a lot of good things happening, and I'll take this moment just to encourage other companies and programs and individuals to get involved, sign up with VIPS to be a partner, because as you see, everything you do matters, and then it is changing our students' lives, and it's helping move our district forward. So thank you for all of our partners in doing that. Our very next comment we have is one public comment, and that is from Teresa Knapp Gordon. She is the president of the Little Rock Education Association. And so, there she is. President Gordon, you have the floor.
Good evening. Good evening, school board members and Superintendent Poor. It's great to see y'all. The portraits almost made me cry. That was awesome. I'm glad that all of you are going to be receiving those. Those will be so special. First of all, I want to say thank you. And I hate following Mr. Poor because he says everything that I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it again. Thank you, thank you, thank you to Mr. Poor, Ron Self, and the security team, Margot Bushmeyer and the nurses, for the coordination of the vaccine clinics. It has been amazing that we have gotten so many shots in arms, and that by this time tomorrow, everybody that signed up through the first round will have gotten their vaccinations. That is awesome. And I have been assured that round 2 is already being coordinated for our second shots. So that's pretty awesome. Congratulations to Stacy McAdoo for the recognition, the National Public Media Award for her PD course with PBS. And also congratulations to Rosie Valdez-Block. She was just named to the Barclay Forum Key Coach Society of debate coaches. So congratulations to her on that. I do also want to say it was a great kickoff for the annual One Rock, One Book adventure. New name, new logo, and a new book. So that was awesome today. And now I want to take just a moment to turn to a different kind of vibe here. I don't know if you guys know, but we have 4 employees, 4 Little Rock School District employees that we have lost to COVID. We have at least 1 currently in ICU, and we have 29 educators in the state of Arkansas that we have lost to COVID. So I would like to take just a moment of silence for those people that we have, those educators that we have lost. Those were all valued employees who love students and whose students love them. So if we could just take just a moment for them, I would appreciate that. Thank you. I also want to say that our staff are all suffering at this moment from some level of PTSD. We were forced to go against the one thing that we as educators have always held sacred, which is putting our students at risk. We need grace, we need support. We're going to need social emotional support for the educators and for our students. Yesterday, there were 10,062 cumulative faculty and staff cases of COVID in the state. That's 14.3% of our educators in the state of Arkansas that have been infected with COVID. And as of yesterday, there were 23,905 student cases. Those students were infected with a virus that we have no idea of what the complications and long-term implications will be. 69 of our excellent Little Rock School District educators risked their livelihoods and received budget crippling, financial consequences, and significant disciplinary action to take a stand against those things happening. I just want to remind you that we love our children too, and even though we're happy that we're getting the vaccinations, it's still serious. And we have to remind everybody to be careful. Mask up, social distance, and wash those hands all the time. Finally, I want to say Happy School Board Appreciation Month. We are so thankful for you. We are so thankful that we have a school board back in the Little Rock School District on this 6th anniversary of the state takeover. And I would like to wish you all a wonderful evening. I'll be watching. Thank you.
Thank you, President Knapp Gordon. We appreciate your comments. Next up, we will hear from our Certified Personnel Committee, a report, and that is from Ms. Austin.
Good evening, Little Rock School Board. First of all, I would like to say thank you to our administration for working with the certified and the classified PPC in developing the Little Rock School District employee COVID leave policy. And I would also like to thank each one of you board members for adopting the policy unanimously. It has already made changes in people's lives, and thank you so much for supporting that. The next item of agenda that I'm going to talk about, please expect an email from me tomorrow to each of you board members. The Little Rock School District Certified Personnel Committee, we are ready to submit the personnel policy manual to you all. I do want to share just a few minutes on the past. And some of you board members are going to know exactly what I'm talking about, but for many, many years, the Little Rock School District and the Little Rock Education Association had entered into what was called a professional negotiated agreement. And this was an agreement that had 39 articles that governed the certified personnel policy. When we were taken over in 2015 and went under state control, there was a directive made to us that made us strip a lot of the language that was in the professional negotiating agreement. In fact, this was a 203-page document that we had to, and I say we because I am a member of the Little Rock Education Association, but we had to strip that document down to 12 pages. So the governance that we had for our certified personnel, it started off looking like a real nice, juicy double cheeseburger with the works. And after we had to strip it down, it was literally like 2 pieces of bread. And so we are now ready to present the personnel policy to you all, and it is 6 sections. I am going to present all 6 sections to you all tomorrow, but we would like to introduce each of those proposals to you 2 at a time, because we know everything has to have a first reading and a second reading. As of right now, we are really living on a lot of the memorandum of understandings, which we call MOUs, to govern our day-to-day operations. And so we really do need a personnel policy. 2017 Arkansas Code 6-17-201. This is the Arkansas Code that gives the personnel policies and requirements. So of course our rationale is it's the state law and we have to have one. And so I will be sending an email out to you all so that you can at least start looking at everything and familiarizing yourself with the personnel policy manual. We do have several individual buildings that have staff handbooks that have been developed, but staff handbooks are not personnel policies. They shouldn't conflict with the personnel policy or any school board policy for that matter. And so I'm just going to share what those, you will have a table of contents. So in section 1, we talk about the employment of certified responsibilities. And those responsibilities outline things like teacher assignments, procedures for the buildings, notification of employment. Section 2 talks about employee responsibilities. So this would be leave policies, procedures, work calendars. This could be anything from salary credits to travel expenses, tuition reimbursement. This also deals with teacher hours, our teacher loads, planning, time, duty, things of that nature. Section 3 is the certified employee building procedures. This outlines library media specialists and the library media center facilities and how they should be governed by the law. This also takes into account procedures for assigning instructional aides in kindergarten rooms, and also procedures for assigning students who are covered by IDEIA as well as 504. Textbook selections is also part of this policy. Section 4, which you will receive tomorrow as well, is the employee classroom management and student discipline policy. These things outline classroom management, student discipline, procedures for physical restraints, sending students to administrators, the due process rights for students, and as well as student placement. Section 5 talks about certified employees policy on transfers, evaluations, and separations. And so that covers procedures in case someone voluntarily transfers, or if there are vacancies and how they're being posted, if someone wanted to put in a request for a transfer. This also outlines procedures for certified employees as far as their evaluations, which is under tests. So this may include a teacher being on an awareness phase or an assistant phase, and it outlines the timeline for this. Our last section is the employee grievances. And so this is for any grievance policies, employee contracts, just cause, dismissals, and things of that nature. And so right now, we currently don't have that. Now we do have board policies, but board policies are not personnel policies. And if you research even within other districts, you will see that they have board policies as well as personnel policies. And so The personnel policy manual was voted on unanimously by the Personnel Policy Committee. And these 6 proposals also passed unanimously with the Little Rock School District PPC committee. And so I just wanted to send it out to you all ahead of time so that when you have your next planning meeting, we would like to introduce sections 1 and 2. And then each month doing the second set, so sections 3 and 4. And then at another meeting, sections 5 and 6. That way, everything gets the first reading, second reading, hopefully your approval or comments, and so that we can have something in place when we start school for our 2021-2022 school year. And so that's what I wanted to put on your agenda for today, that we are ready, the Little Rock School District PPC, we are ready to submit a personnel policy manual for your review. And that will be my comments for the certified staff.
Thank you, Ms. Austin. We appreciate you, and we will look for your email in our emails. Superintendent Poor?
Yes, I would like to make a comment that I would ask Ms. Austin to share that document. Really should come through the district first and then out to the board members, just as a matter of procedure. I have not been able to see the document, but that doesn't, the big thing is all of us should be able to see it and all need to be able to get it at the same time. It also helps us with, just in case this invariably is going to get an FOIA, is my guess. So, and also I would think that it would probably be helpful, Ms. Austin, if you could share the minutes of when that meeting took place and the number of votes. So more or less add your minutes onto whatever document that you send us, if you wouldn't mind.
I sure will.
Thank you.
And if possible,
one second.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Ms. Austin, were you finished speaking?
Yes,
Was that the only thing? Sure. Well, Superintendent Poor, that was all you had? Just making sure. Okay, because I thought that already kind of went through that process. Director Nolan?
Oh, I was just going to ask Mr. Poor, I guess, if possible, when this comes to us, I hope we can get as much feedback as possible from principals, from the community, from teachers, and just really be able to get quite a bit of input on these proposed policies.
Director Nolan, I believe this would just be a document that like we will read, and then of course the way we do, we hash everything out and have conversations, and of course in conjunction with the district, because this gets down into personnel issues. So the superintendent and administration is going to have, I'm pretty sure, a lot to weigh in on. Superintendent, you're recognized.
Thank you, and I do want to share that I appreciate Ms. Nolan's comment, and also that typically when something like this comes in, administration tries to send out either a document at the same time to show things that we either agree or disagree with on, but I have yet to see this document. So, but Ms. Austin will get it to me tomorrow with the minutes, and then we'll proceed from there. It may mean that you don't get it quite right on Friday, but it'll get turned around next week. And obviously we'll make sure Ms. Austin is CC'd when we send it out.
Okay. So point of clarification. So will the document come to the board, or actually it'll be funneled right through the district, and the district will send it?
I'll send it to Mr. Rutherford and to Mr. Robinson, and they'll get it to you. And this is something that we've talked about last year, so it's not something that's brand new. It's something that we're getting ready to present to you all because we did not have a board at the time.
Understood. Thank you, Ms. Austin. We appreciate you and your service and your time dedicated to our staff. Okay. Next, we will hear from our classified PPC, Ms. Eason.
Good evening, everyone, board members and Mr. Poor. I have a short report for everyone tonight. I did want to remind the board that the Classified Personnel Policy Committee did unanimously approve the student calendar that is on tonight's agenda. In the classified PPC, next week we will be working to fill our 2 vacancy positions, which is for the Child Nutrition Department as well as the Transportation Department. And hopefully we will be able to get 2 new PPC members to fill those spots on our committee. And that is all I have this evening.
Awesome. Perfect timing. Okay. So, sorry, stopping the timer. Okay. So, next, we will hear from our educational services. I'm pretty sure this is right where our board will have a great deal of conversation, because this is one of our target areas, and I will turn it over to our superintendent, Mike Poor.
Thank you. Board members, you remember that you received a presentation from Dr. Owa at the last meeting, and also you have received materials that even provide updates that came from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed. So we've tried to prepare you as best as possible for what we're asking for as a ratification of the LRSD exit plan. And I'll just have Dr. Owa just kind of reframe the basic concepts of why this is called a ratification, and then open it up for you all to work on it.
Thank you, Superintendent Poor. Good evening, board members and viewing audience. Just to review, it is our exit plan that was approved by the State Board of Education and approved by the Community Advisory Board, and now placed in front of you all, our local school board, to ratify in a show that from our board to our district administration, as well as our school level employees, personnel members, team members, will follow this plan and ensure that funding, resources, purchasing, professional development, all align with the exit plan to ensure that we meet the criterion goals that have been placed in the exit plan. Just a reminder that there are 5 sections to 5 criterions to this exit plan, and they are: the district will implement the professional learning process and the HRS, the high reliability school process. Criteria 2, the district will implement tests and leads systems. And then the district will implement the district adopted reading curriculum that incorporates the principles of the science of reading and support for dyslexia. And then criteria 4 is an improved budget that's not deficit spending. Criteria 5, an improved master facility plan. We have had our first review at the beginning of the school year, then our mid-year review in December, and then we have our end of the year review in May, June. And so the plan is up to present it to you all as a recommendation for ratification for this final Little Rock School District exit plan.
Okay. All right. We will open the floor up for discussion. Director Nolan.
So I've already had some of these discussions with Mr. Poor and Dr. Owa, but I just wanted to make sure that we as a board are on the same page and have all the information. What, in your opinion, Mr. Poor or Dr. Owa, are the areas that may be areas of concern for us to be able to actually meet our goal?
Thank you, Ms. Nolan. I think that when this criteria were created, we looked at the financial end probably being one of our strengths, but that was prior to the pandemic and the loss of students and even a little bit of the uncertainty of where tax collections might be. And that loss of students still hangs with us when you've lost over 700 students in K-5 and approximately 800 students at the pre-K level. And so it's very hard to start to imagine what a budget looks like for the coming years with that many less students. So, those numbers are going to evolve, but right now it leaves you a little bit in a challenging spot to predict a budget. The other areas have become strengths because they're much more in our control, in our grasp. And so everything from the professional learning communities to the, what we're doing for science and reading, we're doing those things with high fidelity, and I think we're getting high marks from the state. So, the big thing that we have to do, and a part of tonight's presentation later on is Mr. Bailey, and we have Jack Trumper from the Stevens Group coming in to share some historical data as well as some information on the finances of kind of where we project. We're also going to insert some of the ESSER funds because that's going to be a part of this whole thing of how we utilize resources. So I think you're going to kind of get a buildup. And I want to also point out that in February, we are going to come back with you on what it looks like for some form of a debt extension. Doesn't mean that you're deciding necessarily that day, but we want to come forward to say these are the thoughts of the administration of what you all need to consider and when might be the most appropriate time. So that's coming in February. So you're going to continue to get doses of these reports. Also on February, you're going to get a heavy dose of a report on the science of reading. So, we feel like it's an obligation. I'm taking advantage of your question, Ms. Nolan, that we're going to continue to build your capacity. But the number one concern that we'll have to work on with all of you throughout the spring is that financial target of getting the 3 years put together of a balanced budget.
Superintendent Poore, if I can add to that tonight, this ratification or the approval of the ratification is also a major step in this plan, making sure that all parties are together and moving forward when it comes to major financial decisions, program implementations, and purchases.
Thank you. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. You can finish your thought. Was there anything else?
Yes, I have one more quickly. Well, first, I want to very quickly just go on the record again as saying that while I think we should move towards these goals, I just want to continue to lodge my objection to the continued state control of the district. I don't think there's legal justification for that, so I just want to put that on the record. But these are goals we need to focus on and keep working on. I will tell you that exiting state control is a huge priority of people in my zone, and that it was something that we heard a lot about as we were all running for office. And so with that said, I want to ask Mr. Poore, Dr. Owa, to make sure that as soon as there is any indication that we may not reach that goal, that we immediately are alerted and we can work on being more aggressive or, changing course to be able to address those. So I understand that y'all are working with the state right now. It looks like we are on track, but if there is a time that it looks like we may not reach our goal, I want to make sure the board is alerted pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So is there any other discussion from any board members? I have something. Okay, I see Director Adams and then Director Mason. Okay, Director Adams, go ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Hatter. I would just say whenever you are ready and for it, I would, in the spirit of moving things along and moving us along to being fully in local governance and meeting these goals, I would move that we ratify this exit plan.
Second.
And I know we can discuss it more after that motion is on the table, but I would make that motion.
I would second that motion.
Okay. Okay, there's a motion on the table. Mason did. I'm sorry.
Well, go ahead with the motion. I just have a question regarding the certain legislation that removes the 2021 year. There's legislation that was proposed to not.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, I know which ones you're talking about, but okay, so we can come back to that because that's different. That is around grading is what you're talking about.
Right.
Okay, so right now there's a motion on the floor to accept the ratification and then so do we have any? Let me just say.
I have for a suggestion, Ms. Hatter, that may help, and it'll get Ms. Calloway involved too. You have a motion and you have a second right now. And so if you'll open it up to the discussion, that will allow Mr. Mason's point to be asked and Ms. Calloway's, and we can continue on with the discussion. And then when that's exhausted, we can take the vote.
Okay, we'll open it up for discussion. Mr. Mason, did you want to finish your thought on the bill regarding grading?
Yeah, I just the grading. I think Director Nolan just answered my question, but there's legislation about removing the grading for 2021, and I wanted to know whether does that have an effect on our exit plan?
No, sir, Mr. Mason.
No.
That's one of the points at the beginning of our exit plan, that they removed any score or rating associated with summative assessment. So it's those 5 criterion goals are the basis of our exit plan. And it's all implementation of sound instructional practices, the first 3. The 4th one is sound fiscal stability for the district, a 3-year plan that shows that, 3-year budget that shows that, and then the facility plan that shows that the district is moving forward with that. So those are the only 5 that the district is responsible for.
Thank you.
Director Callaway?
I have a question as far as the time frame. When do we expect for the district to complete everything we need to exit?
I'll start with that answer, Ms. Calloway. And the next time that this plan gets reviewed, and at the time that this is reviewed, it could be that there could be a recommendation from the commissioner staff to the state board to remove us, would be that May report. So the efforts that we make between now and May, they will take that into account, and then they will discuss it, and they will, grade us, so to speak, just like they did here in December. And that would be the first time that there would be a formal opportunity probably for the state board to act on it.
Okay, just for clarification, we're saying this May?
Yes, we're up for another review, the end of the year review this May, but to also to provide additional context, Mrs. Calloway, we have to show, based on evidence, that these goals, first 3 especially, the implementation of tests and leads, science of reading, our literacy plan, as well as our support plan for dyslexia, and our implementation of professional learning communities and high reliability schools process, full implementation district-wide, which means that there's a foundation, and then all of our teachers and leaders have capacity and moving forward with those. And so that's the type of evidence that they're looking for, how the district is supporting the process and how the schools are implementing the process, and that it's district-wide in every school, every classroom. And that's what we're charged to do. And so that's what we've been working on, the district has been working on prior to me getting here, and what we've been doing since I've got here in July, to make sure that we move forward with that.
Thank you.
And yeah, getting out of getting it from under state control fully is definitely something that we all are concerned about. However, the most concern is the financials, because as I've shared with some of the other board members in district, is that we can't fully make a 3-year budget plan, which is part of it, without understanding right where we sit right now. And that is, I'm really looking forward to Mr. Bailey's report, as well as looking at our past audits to make sure that we understand right where we sit financially, because that is going to be the hook that will keep us, in my opinion, under state control, no matter if we can't meet that last requirement. Director Wood, I see that you have unmuted.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I want to say, I'm going to vote in favor of ratifying this, and sounds like everybody else is too. And I appreciate that the state lowered the exit criteria so that we could more quickly get back to full local control by essentially removing certain achievement criteria. But I do just want to go on the record that even though I'm going to vote for this, that I don't think merely trying is enough. I think that we as a board and we as a school district have to set higher expectations for ourselves than these minimum expectations that the state board has set for returning to local control. I believe that our number one objective must be high student achievement. And so even though that's not a part of this criteria, as we go forward over the next few months, I just don't want that to be forgotten. I don't want us to lower our own expectations to this minimal standard, but I hope that we will hold ourselves to a high expectation of high achievement for our kids. But I'll vote for the ratification of this.
Thank you, Director Wood. Director Adams.
Thank you, Ms. Hatter. I just wanted to speak in favor, just a comment in support of the motion. I wanted to express appreciation to all the work that has been done by the staff and the community advisory board and the people and the leaders involved to get us to this place where we are much closer than ever of exiting and being under full local governance, and would certainly resonate with what Mr. Wood, your comments that this is not the end goal. This is just a piece of it, but all that we need to do. But I'm optimistic that with the work that's been done, the dedication and determination that has been exhibited so far, and the group that we have, that we will be able to do what is needed to meet this goal and then go further than that. And so I really do appreciate all the work that's been done to get us to this place.
Thank you, Director Adams. And just for everyone to, if you guys choose to reference, the bill that Director Mason is talking about is House Bill 1151, and that just talks about the grading because of the loss of learning that have happened not only this school year but last school year, looking at the grading. So for those that are tracking along and looking at bills, that's the one, House Bill 1151. Okay, so in Director Nolan and then Director Johnson, and then we will move forward with the motion.
I just had a very quick note, which is that we talked about May. That is the first time I think that I've really heard a specific date or timetable. Maybe not, maybe y'all have talked about it before, but that would mean we would need a 3-year balanced budget by May, and we have 3 meetings before May. So if that is something that is going to be an impediment to us reaching this goal and exiting state control, I just want to make sure that we are on track. I'm not sure if that's something that requires a first and second reading or something like that, but we need to act pretty quickly if we're trying to reach that goal.
Yes, Director Nolan, there will be meetings in between meetings between now and then, right as we get the budget, because next month, as Superintendent mentioned, then we're really going to dive into the finances of that. And then to just recall some of you all's memory, we talked even about looking at the past couple audits as well as looking at those findings. And so there is serious and deliberate and intentional conversations going forward, because our finances is the most important thing that will keep us from either exiting the plan or not exiting the plan. Right now, we're under academic distress and not fiscal distress. And I think that that's very important to make sure that all of us remember, as well as our community. So moving forward, definitely we will be having very robust conversations, right, as we all do, with very thoughtful questions. So, Director Johnson.
Yes, how are you doing? This is
Well,
for
thank you.
Mr. Poor. I have a question. I know the budget is a concern. Are there any other barriers that we need to focus on besides the budget before May?
Well, I think we want to keep our nose to the grindstone on really all 5 criteria. They're all sound things, and just like the science of reading, which I know many of you have talked about in your role to get elected, that you worried about that. You're going to get a really good report coming from Ms. Worsham on that in February. So, you know, we want you to be kind of having your hands on all 5 of these criteria and having us feed you. And if we're not giving you enough information, please share that with us. And one other little note, just I'll come back to kind of combining what you said, Ms. Johnson, with Ms. Nolan. You know, the budget, you know, you don't even approve a budget until September. So really what you're trying to do is show kind of a map of how we get to the balanced budgets over that 3-year span and developing a level of confidence with that. But again, that's work we still have to do, as Ms. Hatter said.
Okay. So we are closing a discussion, moving forward with our agenda and this motion. So we have we had the motion second. We opened it up for discussion. Now we're ready to vote. And so if you all are ready to unmute or let me see your hands. Do we have any, I'm going to just start with this. Do we have any opposed? Okay, seeing that there's none opposed, do we have ayes? Any yeses?
Yes.
Okay.
Aye.
So, all right, and so the motion passed 9-0. Got it. Okay, so thank you guys for that conversation. Thank you for the laser conversation and discussion on that. We will I'm going to pass it to our Superintendent Mike Poor to give us the human resources.
Thank you. We have 2 items for you that Mr. Robinson will help me with. One of them is really a revised plan for substitute pay that just matches up with the new expectation of a raised minimum salary within the state of Arkansas. And the second one is our student calendar. Both of these, actually, really the student calendar, you really should be quite familiar with. You've heard PPC groups both say that they're approving the student calendar. And we hope that the documentation that Mr. Robinson provided on the temporary pay makes total sense to you, and that we can move on these 2 items fairly quickly. Mr. Robinson, anything to add that would help put context to either one of those items?
Not this time, Superintendent. Well stated. Thank you.
Okay. I will open it up for discussion. Do any of the board members have any discussion?
Ms. Hatter, as you're preparing for that, these would be 2 separate motions, by the way. So we do have to work on each of these individually.
Thank you. Okay, I'm seeing no discussion on this first. Do we have a motion?
Madam President, I'd like to move that we approve the revised substitute temporary employment pay schedule.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I will second that motion.
Okay. Do we have any opposed? Do we have any ayes?
Aye.
Okay, ayes have it. So that first motion passed. You guys are quiet. I mean, Jesus. You guys are quiet. I'm not used to the board being this quiet. Okay.
We did our homework.
Hey, you know what? I totally appreciate that. I appreciate it all. We're on good time.
I think we did our homework.
But I
Ms.
lost
Hatter.
my. I'm sorry, please.
I said I think we did our homework.
Yeah.
And we worked with the administration, and which is, I know personally I would say was great help. So I got my questions answered.
Yeah, I mean, I know. I mean, several of you guys did that, calling and talking with Superintendent Port and administration. So that totally works to keep us moving and keep community engaged. Yeah. So we have another motion. I mean, another piece of. What is it the, I'm sorry, I got out of character. Is the student calendar, is that what we're doing? Okay, y'all, help me out. Okay, so student calendar is up. Do we have a motion?
I so move.
Okay, do we have a second?
A second.
Okay, do we have any opposed? Ayes?
Aye.
Amen. Okay, so we ayes have it. That's 9-0. So that have passed. Superintendent Poor, I'm turning it back over to you all, to you for the financial and support services. Oh, I do want to mention one thing. I did have a chance to talk with some of our campus security, and so going forward, I think then we will be having conversations around their rate of pay, or how it's a myriad of things, but two, we would need to look at that on how some of them have capped out, and again, that gets into budgeting. So, but at any rate, you guys, we are doing extremely well on time. Superintendent, it's over to you to talk about finances, and we covered that in 4 minutes, that last one, so we're doing good.
Ms. Hatter, there is a comment in the chat where Ms. Nolan has asked for a 5-minute break, which would get us to the 7 o'clock mark if the rest of the board members are willing to take that, or we can just plow through and Ms. Nolan would drop off for a second.
That's fine too, if y'all want to keep going. I just didn't know if anyone else needed a short break.
I need a short break.
Okay, well, we will.
Break.
All right, we will go ahead and take a set. You know what? We'll go ahead and take a 7-minute break, because that give you the full 5 minutes and a couple of minutes to sit back and get back into it. So we're in recess for our break for 7 minutes. right, directors? We have a couple more minutes. We have about 2.5 minutes.
Madam President, I'm just testing my mic to make sure you all can hear me okay.
Yes.
Elsie, Mr. Bailey, you have 6 minutes when you go.
Oh, okay. Hopefully I won't digitize this time. So it seems like I got a pretty strong signal in here now.
Okay. How's the baby boy?
Doing well.
Good.
So y'all let me know if anytime it breaks up any.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
We will.
You know what, you guys? We moved through this agenda so quickly. I think most of our time was spent doing our celebrations as it should have been, and then of course the exit plan was the next thing. But good use of time.
You're doing well, Director Hatter. You're doing well.
Man, you know, it's kind of hard to do a Toastmaster situation with all 9 of us.
You get better. You get better. The more you do it, the better you get.
Oh, thank you, Director Johnson.
You're welcome.
Okay. I think we have everyone. Okay. As soon as Allie come back. Then I had 7:06, but that seemed like that was long.
6
did anybody?
I have 7:04.
I'm here. I've been here.
I see you. Okay. Okay. Great deal. I was looking for cameras. Okay. Are you guys ready to get back into it? Okay. Well, let's get into it, and we might be able to get out of here by 9 o'clock, 8:30 at least. Okay. All right. Before we go live, Mr. Bailey, it's on you. I mean, if you keep us here longer, coming for you. Superintendent Mike Poor, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. Are we back live?
Yes, we are. Thank you, Ms. Hatter. And so tonight on the financial report, we have really kind of almost multiple parts that we want to present to you. We know that every month we want to share our financial report of just where we stand. And those are always kind of almost like 1 month behind. So we're really looking at what happened in the month of December. Second, we want to provide a financial analysis tonight that's going to come from Jack Trumper of the Stevens Group. Third, we want to share a little about how our approach to ESSER 2 funding will be taken care of. And we also want to make sure we insert some information about our past audits. And I'm going to let Mr. Bailey kind of guide us through this, and I'll turn it back over to him right now.
Again, good evening, board and the public is watching. I'm going to share my screen here shortly. Let's see. So these are the topics we actually covered tonight. So we have Mr. Jack Trump on from Stevens Inc., public finance area. So we're going to let him go first and cover the financial analysis. Then we'll jump into legislative audit reports along with any findings of the ESSER 2 funding along with the monthly financial reports at the end. So if you all don't object to that, I'm going to introduce you to Mr. Jack Trumper, and I'm going to pull up my screen and actually share the financial analysis, I believe, which was actually attached to the agenda as well. So welcome, Mr. Jack Trumper.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Mr. Poor, President Hatter, can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Great, great. It's a pleasure to be with you all and the entire board, and very much appreciate this opportunity. So what Mr. Bailey has up for you all, it's what we call a financial analysis, which our goal and objective here is to kind of give you a history of the district's assessed value of the past 5 years, some information on how the district compares to other schools of similar enrollment and in the same area from an enrollment, an assessment, and a millage standpoint. And then we'll go through kind of a history of the district's debt and then some other financing information as well. So please, at any time you have any questions, please stop me and ask. What you see here on page 1 is the 5-year assessment history of the Little Rock School District. You can see back in 2015, the total assessed value was a little over $3.4 billion. In the end of 19, a little over $3.9 billion. And so over that 5-year period, the growth has been 2.72%. This is an important number for the board and for the district, because this is one way that revenues are increased for the district. That as your assessed values go up, your revenues generated from your mills will generate more revenue for the district. And so your two main ways of generating revenues, of course, are assessed value growth and student enrollment growth. So you're at 2.72%. Below that, you see a chart which the majority of the district's assessment comes from real property, of course, followed by personal property and then utilities. The last reappraisal was 2017, and so the next reappraisal will be in 2022. On page 2, you can see that the district has 32 maintenance and operation mills, 2 dedicated maintenance and operation mills where those 2 mills are restricted for certain uses, and then 12.4 debt service mills for a total of 46.4. The state average at present is 38.76. In Arkansas, 1 mill is 1/10 of a cent. And so if your value of your home is $100,000, you're assessed at 20% of that, which would be $20,000, and a 1 mill increase would be $20 per year. And the formula for that is 20,000 times 0.001, which is 1 mill, which would be the $20. 1 mill in the Little Rock School District at a 95% collection rate, which for the most part is a little bit conservative, but we like to be conservative when we look at these numbers. But 1 mill for Little Rock would generate $3,748,272 at a 95% collection rate. When you look at millage comparisons of districts with similar enrollment, of course, they're not going to be real exact, but these are 4 of your largest districts in the state. Springdale with a little over 22,000 students, Rogers 15,600, Little Rock 21,000, and Bentonville 17,800. And you can see the assessed values for each one of those districts and the total mills that each district is levying to the patrons of the district.
Mr. Trumper, I'm sorry, I have one quick question.
Hold on, Allie, one second. Can we hold all questions until the end of just his presentation? Because then
sure, he had asked us to jump in if we had a question, so that's what I was trying to do. I'm happy to wait.
Sorry, I must have missed it. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, it's a very simple question, but you showed our growth in Little Rock for the assessed value, and then you have comparisons to other areas, and I just wondered if Little Rock was growing in a way that is comparative to other areas when we're looking at the growth in assessed value.
Ms. Nolan, I do not have that information at my fingertips, but I would sure be happy to get it for you all. That would not be a problem whatsoever. And that's not a complicated thing to do. Just take a little bit of time, and I can get that in Mr. Poore and Mr. Bailey's hands by the beginning of next week.
Thank you.
Moving in, let me make a note. Moving into page 3, this is, of course, at the top of this page, this is millage comparisons of districts with similar assessments. Again, it's going to be a little bit across the board, but you can see the districts of Springdale, Pulaski County, Rogers, Little Rock, and Bentonville, and looking at their assessed values. Little Rock is by far the largest at the 3.9, with the smallest being Springdale at 1.7. And then you can see the millage rates from each school, and then, of course, the enrollment for each one of those districts. And then this chart is basically the schools and the county surrounding Pulaski County and the districts. And of course, you can notice that the assessed values and the millage rates and the enrollments are all across the board, but it kind of gives you an idea of how Little Rock compares to the districts of Pulaski County and then the counties that surround us. So if there's any additional information on those, we'll be happy to provide that at any time. Moving into page 4, we're going to go through these next couple of pages. Our history or history and the current outstanding debt of the district. You can see that we have the bonded debt issues of the qualified zone academy bond that was done in 2005. That issue is going to pay off this year. I know Mr. Bailey's happy about that. You see that the original amount of the loan was $2,212,000, and you can see that the outstanding balance is $2,212,000. Technically, that is true, but each year since that loan was taken out, the district has been making a principal payment into what we call a sinking fund. So those funds will be there in July for that loan to be paid off. You can see that the July 8, 2005 QZAB financed the purchase of HVAC equipment and for making repairs and renovations. Then we have the December 1, 2015 issue. That was a refunding issue which refinanced other debt. And what I've tried to do below each one of these snapshots is to kind of give you an idea of history of what that loan did. You can see the original amount of the loan, $126,740,000. Your current interest rates from the current 2022 maturity to the final maturity in 2033, you're 3% out to 3.5, and your current outstanding balance is $94,890,000. The December 1, 2015 issue, it refunded a September 1, 2008 issue, a March 1, 2010, and a November 1, 2010 bond issue. And you can see that the savings generated below that was a little over $3.7 million. And then the September 1, 2008 bonds, it constructed and equipped a new elementary school to house kindergarten through 5th grades. The March 1, 2010 bonds were funded in October 15, 2000 issue, and the total savings realized from that refinancing was almost $5.5 million. And then the November 1, 2010 bonds refinanced a June 1, 2001 issue, a Series C construction bond issue, and that realized almost $12 million in savings.
Those are some important aspects of this actual presentation where we've taken advantage of the economy. When the rates have gone down, we try to refinance any funds that we had outstanding and actually put that money back into capital improvements.
Moving into page 5, the December 15 issue, original amount was $17,995,000, and its current outstanding balance is a little over $14 million. And you can see the interest rates from 2022 to 2033 are 2% out to 3.25%. And I won't read that, but that you can see that was a whole laundry list of different projects that were generated by that 2015 issue. Let me back up. The 2015 issue refinanced the July 1, 2009 issue. The July 1, 2009 issue accomplished all those projects, and the savings realized from that refinancing was almost $1.9 million. And then the September 21, 2017 issue, it was a new construction issue. Original amount, $92,055,000. It's got a 3% interest rate. Current balance is a little over $92,055,000. Outstanding balance is $71,415,000. And of course, this is the bond issue that completed this construction of Southwest High School and then made some additional improvements, which included equipment purchases, roofs, HVAC systems, and new security systems at the high schools. Then the last bonded debt, the June 26, 2019 issue, $33,770,000. Its interest rate is 3% as well. Its current outstanding balance is $30,775,000, and it refinanced a June 15, 2012 issue, which we realized savings of a little over $4.4 million, and the refunding of the 2006 issue generated a little savings over a little over $3 million, and then the June 26-19 issue, which refunded the 2012 issue, was almost $1.5 million. So as Mr. Bailey said, we really try to monitor this, and anytime there's an opportunity that district can save money, we present these options and these ideas to the district. Any questions on the bonded debt? Or excuse me, President Hatter, we'll wait till the end. So if you scroll down, again, the next page is the different non-bonded debt issues. These are issues that are secured by the district's M&O mills, where the bonded debt issues are secured by your debt service mills. And you can see there are several installment contracts, some lease purchase agreements, and most of these non-bonded debts were used for purchasing equipment or school buses. And you can see your interest rates are all very competitive, and particularly the ones that were done in 19 where the interest rate was 0. So moving into page 8, you can see that the total debt of the district is $225,189,912.64. A little over $213 million represents the bonded debt, and almost $12 million represents the non-bonded debt. And so the total debt to your assessed value is 5.71%. A lot of times we'll get asked questions, is that a high number or a low number? And I will tell you that would be a low number compared to districts in the state. There used to be a law that districts could borrow 27% of their assessed value, and with state board approval, I think it was 35%. That law was repealed a while back, but if those parameters were still in place, you can see that debt to the total assessment of the district, it's very low compared to those numbers at 5.71%. Moving into page 9, this shows you the current bonded debt service requirements of the qualified zone academy bond, and then the 215 issues, the 17 and the 19, and you can see your debt for the next 4 or 5 years. Well, next year for 21, a little over 21.5 million, and then it drops off a little bit to the $21.4 million range, and then after the qualified zone academy bond pays off, then we're right there around the 21.3 million range till the fiscal year 2033. And those are the total principal and interest payments of your bonded debt. Moving into the next page, this is what we call the coverage analysis or the surplus debt service revenue. And this is basically showing, based on your 2019 assessed value in 12.4 debt service mills, that generates revenue of $46,478,583. I showed you on the first page that your assessed values have grown every year, but on this page, we have not taken account any future growth, just to have a little bit more of a conservative picture. The second column you can see is the bonded debt payment, which matches the previous slide. And then we show your coverage ratios that are 2+ times. So when you see a coverage ratio of 2.16, that basically says for every dollar in payment that you have $2.16 of revenue coming in. And so your surplus or your coverage, that's the difference between your revenues and your bonded debt service requirements. And typically speaking, those surplus debt service revenues are used for operation and maintenance and for pay-as-you-go projects. Any comments, or Kelsey, anything you want to add to that page? All right. Moving on to page 11, this is your collection rates. As I mentioned earlier, I had used 95%. Your 5-year history is 97.99%. But your school tax levy column shows you what your total mills generate. It's not just your debt service mills, it's the total mills of the district. And then the third column shows you what your school taxes are collected. And then the last column gives you your collection rates. And so you can see that for all the years, 2 of the years, you're above 98%, other 2 years, almost 96 and above 96, and then 16, 17, 100%. I always kind of comment about this because, in a perfect world, your collection rates would be 100% every year, right? So if you're falling below 100%, eventually you're going to catch up and you'll have collection rates that rise over 100%. The state is going to guarantee you a 98% collection rate on your 25 or your first 25 M&O mills. Everything above those 25 M&O mills, the district will collect at whatever those collection rates are that you see in each one of those years. So for all in all, your collection rates are good. On page 12, this is just a snapshot, and this is your audited numbers for the last 5 years. We call it summary of your sources and uses of funds. The audits that I know Mr. Bailey will talk about will be a little bit more detailed because we combined all the support services into one category, because you can see that your support services are quite high, but that's a combination of things. But you can see the different revenues, your total expenditures, and then if you can scroll down just a little bit, Mr. Bailey, you'll notice that the district fund balances for the years 19 to 15 are anywhere from the $25 million range to the $43 million range. So all in all, your audits look very good. Then on page 13, this is something we try to do every year once we go from one fiscal year to the next fiscal year, is just to kind of give the district an idea of what your revenues are going to look like based on the different funding factors. And on this particular scenario, we're looking at an increase from 1920 to 2021 of a little over $1.8 million. And that is being generated from the growth in your assessment, from all your mills above your 25 mills, and then it's generated from your increase in your foundation funding or your URT, because it was increased from $6,899 per student in 1920 to $7,018 per student in 2021. So those pages right there kind of give you a snapshot in history of the district. And then what we always like to provide is just some scenarios, some options, so the district can kind of look at, okay, well, what are my financing options? What's my borrowing power? So what we looked at issue of non-bonded debt, and we just did a sampling of 200. If you were to raise 200,000, 400,000, 600,000, 800,000, or $1 million, what would that payment look like at 4%? And you can see that, for example, in 600,000, a 10-year loan at 4%, the annual payment would be $75,639. I can tell you today that 4% is a conservative rate. Because of this pandemic, our interest rate environment has been very attractive, but again, we like to be conservative, so that's at a 4% rate. Then we go into an issue of second lien bonds. Now, second lien bond issue is a bond issue is what is secured by that surplus or that excess debt service revenue that we showed you on that coverage page. So with this options to show you that if Mr. Bailey and Mr. Poor said, okay, well, Jack, we need to borrow $3 million, and you can borrow that money out to Feb 1, 2033, because that's how long your debt service mills have been approved, what would the annual payment be? And you can see that based on a 2.25% interest rate, which today is a conservative rate, borrowing $3 million, that annual payment would be a little over $302,000 a year. And then taking it a step further with option 3, we said, okay, well, what if the district said, okay, we want to go to the voters and ask for a $1 million increase or a $2 million increase or a $3 million increase? What would that support in new construction funds? And you can see, because of your assessed value as being over $3.9 million and 1 mill generating, $3,945,000, 1 mill increase, and this is a 30-year repayment term. It's not a repayment term out to your current 2033 timeframe, but a 30-year repayment term. A 1 mil increase would generate construction funds $72 million. A 2 mil would be about $144 million, and then 3 new mills would generate about $216 million. Then the last option that I want to show you, and this is kind of one of the things that we look at when a district is trying to raise funds. Of course, typically speaking, the first thing districts don't want to do is look for a millage increase. So we look for what can we do from a millage extension or restructuring. And so by restructuring your December 115 issue and your December 15 issue and extending them 19 years, you can see that the estimated construction funds at an estimated true interest cost of 2.85 could generate $218 million. At an estimated true interest cost of 3.1%, it would be a little over $206 million. What this scenario does, this does not increase the district's current payment. Your current payment, as we mentioned, after the 21 year, around the 21.4, and you can see that's what the maximum payment would be based on this scenario. And we have also not accounted for any growth in assessment as well. I would also mention that today, of course, interest rates change constantly. Today, those interest rate assumptions are, we believe, conservative this time. But that just kind of gives you all as a board an idea of just what some different financing scenarios are. I'll also point out on that last one, we used a 95% collection rate, again, just to be a little bit conservative. So, President Hatter, I tried to be very quick on that. I know that's a lot of information, and I would sure be happy to answer any questions.
All right. I'm going to start off the first question with the restructuring of debt, which is one of the questions I had coming into this. If we restructured our debt, would we still, I mean, where will we fall right a district as far as having an ask for the millage? Would is that something that we're able to do? Is looking at how can we restructure?
Yes, ma'am, you can. The question regarding taxes is if there's not a change, it does not require a vote. So that second lien scenario that we discussed, that does not require a vote because we are using a resource that has already been approved by the patrons of the Little Rock School District. If you go into that option 4 with the extension of your millage, not increasing the millage rate, but the extension, that is a change and that would require a vote. School districts are permitted to go to the voters to ask for a millage once every calendar year, once in a calendar year. And so the last, of course, election was last year, 2020. And so you will go to the voters this year and have the voters approve your millage rate as it is today, or if you choose to ask for a change. And so that can be done once in a calendar year. Does that answer your question?
Clarifying question. So are you saying regardless if we ask for and this is more so for the public that's watching to follow along and have an understanding, is so are you saying that regardless if we're putting forth a millage or else if a millage is on the ballot, to extend it or to ask for a new one, either every year it has to go on the ballot? Did I hear you correctly?
Yes, ma'am.
Every year a millage goes on the ballot regardless if we're asking for money or not asking for
that
money.
Is absolutely correct. That is a requirement of our Constitution that the voters are permitted each year to vote on the tax rate. If you do nothing and you go vote your current millage rate of 46.4 mills, 32 M&O mills, 2 dedicated M&O, and 12.4, and it fails, it just reverts back to what it was the previous year. So it will not change. And so if you go to the voters and ask for an extension or an increase and it is defeated, it would revert back to what it was the previous year. So it would not be reduced, it would just not be increased or extended. And so each year, right now, we are required to go to the voters to vote on the tax rate, whether it's a change or not a change.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so bottom line is, well, I want to make clear, right, to the community, we're not saying that the millage you will see or potentially see will be for a change or keeping it the same. We are having a conversation about our budget and right where we stand at now, looking at past, looking at right where we're at up to 2019, and then this is a conversation within our financial report. Just making that clear just for those that are watching.
Absolutely correct. So in 2017, the district went to the voters for the extension, and then it was defeated. And then in 2018, the district voted this current millage rate that you have now, and then again in 19, and then in 2020, it was the extension. So that is absolutely correct.
Okay, thank you. I'm just making sure I'm tracking right. You know, I love accounting, but making sure I'm understanding school and millage correctly.
I will mention this at the superintendent symposium back in January, and Mr. Poor, I know you were there. I saw you. There is one, and I can't remember if it's a representative or a senator. Do you, Mr. Poor? Is trying to go get a constitutional amendment changed, which will require a vote by the state of Arkansas, that if you're not changing your millage rate, that you would not have to go to the voters. But I think that's got a ways to go, my personal opinion.
Okay, thank you. The floor, thank you for that presentation and information. Directors, the floor is open. I see that Director Nolan have unmuted. Director Nolan, you have the floor.
Well, I'm happy to defer. I've been asking a lot of questions, so if anyone else would like to jump in, but
no,
not,
go ahead. You
okay?
Please go ahead, please.
So my questions are about the fund balance from year to year, and I have questions for Mr. Trumper, but also for Mr. Poor. I'm looking at page 12 of this report, and correct me if I am not reading it correctly, but it looks like from 2017 to 2018, and then again from 2018 to 2019, we had a reduction in our fund balance those years. So first I would ask Mr. Poor to give the board an understanding of why that was and what was happening there. But then also with Mr. Trumper to ask, looking at that fund balance, what is your assessment of the overall financial health of the district? We have to, in order to meet the exit criteria, we need to have a balanced budget going forward for 3 years. And I just wondered if the reduction in that fund balance is something to be concerned about, or if it's something that, we're sitting on a good, healthy fund balance.
I'll start, and then Mr. Bailey will compliment me, and then we'll turn to Mr. Trumper, I guess, to wrap it up. But the fund balance, in terms of just, I'll have Mr. Bailey specifically kind of address the sequence of that, but that was a planned reduction, and we feel like we've been in a good, still in a very healthy fund balance in terms of year to year for the size of our district. Mr. Bailey, anything to comment on, add on to?
You're exactly right. So when we built that fund balance up, that was part of the DSEC wind down as well. So over this period of time, we actually purchased land to actually build the Southwest High School along with the West Little Rock Middle School. We ended up buying the Leisure Art Center and actually doing about $34 million of renovation. We paid for all that out of actual operating procedures, funds there. So it was planned for capital improvement. So we just used it as we got down. So typically, if you look at the government standard, they would recommend roughly anywhere between 5 and 10% of a fund balance. You need at least need about 2 to 3 months of operating funds, and you can kind of see our total expenditures. If you look up here, it's about $240 million. This is roughly a little over 10% of it. So we've had some healthy fund balances over the past, but it was temporary because we had capital improvement needs that we had planned to spend that money on.
And also too, from the standpoint, you've got to look, as I mentioned earlier, the two ways school districts gain revenues is if they gain students, because that not only generates additional foundation funding, but it also generates additional revenues from the categorical funding. So it's always important that districts benefit when they gain students as opposed to losing in students. And then the other revenue source is, of course, from your growth in assessment, because everything above your 25, we call that the uniform rate of tax. Even though you all have more than 25 M&O mills, the uniform rate of tax is 25, and that's what the state guarantees, the 98%. So everything above that you collect based on your growth in your assessment, and that can be a very good revenue source for the district.
One very, very short follow-up. I would just like to ask Mr. Poor and Mr. Bailey, when and if going forward there is an expenditure that's going to dip into that fund balance, will you alert the board so that we will know that that's occurring and we can be aware?
Yeah, and just one thing about the fund balance, our fund balance can get up to 100 million during the year. And that's because you add more revenue when all the taxes come in, you have more revenue than you have expenses. So these fund balances you're looking at now are end of the year fund balances. So our fund balance, I mean, it goes up and down every day, as well as revenue and expenses kind of go out. So typically you want to have enough fund balance to cover the majority of your federal programs, because all those programs are on a reimbursable basis. So you have to spend money and get money back in. So sometimes it take a little while for some of those reimbursements. Most of them are on a monthly basis, but we've had some situations where our federal government has shut down, and a lot of districts, we had a healthy fund balance. We were able to float ourselves during that time and not go out and actually get loans from banks to make payroll and different things like that. So those are things that fund balance are used for, those rainy day funds, or if you have special projects you want to do. But definitely, it's never a plan really to dip into the fund balance unless it's actually planned.
Thank you very much.
So President Hatter, may I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
Mr. Trumper, I'm not gonna call you Mr. Trumper, I'm gonna call you Jack because I've been knowing you 40 years. So over the years, I know you've been doing this, the public schools that you've worked with, what has been their preference? Has it been to go to the voters for the meal or to go to the voters for restructuring their bonds?
Mr. Mason, and I will call you Mr. Mason. That's a great question. Typically speaking, when we work with superintendents such as Mr. Poy says, okay, well, I need to look at a building program. What's the best way for me to raise funds? The first place we look at is the second lien bond, and that's doing a bond issue that is secured by your excess or surplus debt service revenue. The big question about the second lien bond is there's not an additional revenue source being generated, so you've got to understand the affordability of that project. And so that's the first place we look at, because one, it does not require a vote because you're using a revenue source that has already been approved by the voters. Then the second step would be, okay, what can we do without increasing the millage rate? And that's where we look at the restructuring and the extension, or just the extension, to see is there any way we can generate funds that extends the millage, the debt service mills, but does not increase them. The third way, and they're actually kind of four, the third way is, well, if those don't generate what we need, then we look at, okay, what type of millage increase. And if that type of millage increase is more than districts typically want to use, then sometimes we go with a combination of a restructuring and a millage increase. So in other words, if on those financing options, if I said that, you know, a 3 mil increase would generate 216 million, well, under 4, we showed you that just on a restructuring, you could generate 218 million without increasing your mills. You would just be extending them. So we try to look at all these avenues, but our goal is to try to help the district achieve the goals that it's trying to achieve, with very much taking the taxpayers into consideration.
Thank you.
Just historically, second lien that we took out in 2017, it increased our debt service payment roughly about $7 million.
Mr. Bailey, question more so for those that are watching and for others to follow along. The balance fund and the reserve fund, can you give a quick description or difference between the two, and then the percentage in which the district keep those at?
They're one and the same. Yeah.
We can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Are you hearing me now?
Can't make out what you're saying.
Still can't hear me.
You're
Still coming in
distorted.
muted or distorted.
Okay. So, as Mr. Bailey is coming, will rejoin us, Director Adams.
Thank you. I'm going to actually have some questions for Mr. Bailey, I believe. So if I'm glad to wait a minute until he can come back, until we work that out.
Okay.
Or I could address those. I could address those to Mr. Poor to see if he might be able to address them too, and maybe refer to Mr. Bailey if needed, if you'd like.
Mr. Superintendent, are you okay with that? And you guys could tag team in when you come back in. You could ask clarifying questions.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Ms. Hatter. So I just want to be real clear on where we're at. I'm assuming, and that part of the reason that we're having this discussion is the context is we want to have funds because we have construction that the district needs to be done in our plan, and that would be, and our first thing that we've committed to before we do any other expansion or new construction would be taking care of the McClellan campus. Am I correct in that understanding, or is there something else I need to be understanding?
That is correct. Now, I will share that one of the good things about Mr. Trumper's presentation is it does give you context of some of the resources that come into the district and even some projections for the future. So there is a little bit of foundational pieces there, but we also are trying to set the stage that we do have building needs. And of course, the number one facility need that we have and an obligation as a part of a lawsuit was to take care of the Cloverdale campus and create a new campus at the old McClellan.
Thank you. So, with the options that Mr. Trumper presented and that the district, looked at before we had a board back and then back in 2020, and the recommendation was made for the option 4, could you summarize the preference for option 4 over option 2, because that sounds like that option 2 was the other option that was considered as a possibility.
I'll share my perspective first, and then the two gentlemen can add. One is that the difference in terms of trying to set up your debt payment is more attractive to me under option 4, and that it also generates a larger amount of dollars, if I'm correct. Am I right on that, Mr. Trumper?
Yes, sir, Mr. Poor.
So it gives us more money. And then what was your first point, Mr. Poor? It gives us more money that we can deal with. And you had the other first point?
And the other point was that your payment is also less than if you go for the second lien loan.
All right, correct. And so the downside, would I be understanding the downside of option 4, that people who might not be in favor of that, or people who'd be skeptical, would say, well, your payment is not bigger, but it's going to go for much longer. Would that be the kind of the con or the disadvantage to that?
That's correct.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So
Director Adams, and can you, for the audience, not to throw you off track, but for those listening and tracking, can you remind people what option 4 is?
So the option 4 was extending, refinancing our bonds so that we would, sort of like refinancing, my understanding, it's sort of like refinancing your house. You extend the debt and you get some cash out. Is that a fair comparison, Mr. Poor, Mr. Trumper?
Yes, sir, I think so. Because what you're doing is you're extending your payment out, which makes it lower. And so you're able to bring on additional construction funds without raising your current annual payment.
Right. So thank you. I just want to make sure I was real clear on the pros and cons of what y'all are presenting. And the second thing is I'd like to make a request for another meeting, not an additional meeting, but a request for information in another meeting. As we're thinking about this really big picture, it would be helpful to me to take even a longer view of our revenue trends. I appreciate the 5 years, but I wonder if we could go back even further.
Sure, we can.
And, frankly, it would comfort me even to see a 20-year trend.
Be happy to do that.
For revenues. And then, as you mentioned, the other piece besides the revenue, from our assessment, the other piece is our enrollment. And it would also be very helpful for me to see the context of the last 20 years for our enrollment and see where those trends are going. I understand that at the moment, that it's a little bit, well, it's quite a bit screwy because of the pandemic and that kind of thing. So it's hard to guess, but it would sure be helpful to me to have a much bigger context to see where we are, and as we try to make a decision that would possibly impact us for many years out. And I'm open to thinking about that, but I would like to have both those long-term trends, both in revenue and in enrollment, for a future meeting when we're talking about these issues.
Can I chime in on that, Director Adams, for you?
Oh, please do.
Okay, my suggestion would be not to go back further than when we started the DSEG wind down, because those trends are going to be skewed because we had kids from Pulaski County, North Little Rock, and other kids coming into the district. So your enrollment projections are going to be different, along with your revenue as well. So we had to cut approximately at least 42 up to $50 million out just for DSEG. So when you make that comparison, you're not going to get the full picture without knowing that you had that many students and that much revenue that was associated with desegregation efforts. But we definitely have the numbers available as well, along with enrollment trends over that period of time.
I appreciate that point. I think it's a good point, Mr. Bailey. I guess I would still like to put an asterisk and have that information, I think partially for the public to be able to see, to say that, so if I'm understanding correctly, when we left the DSEG and we quit having the magnet schools and having kids bust in from all over and people went back to their home districts and that kind of thing, that changed things. But I think that if we're going to help ourselves and the public understand the kind of decisions that we'd be making about facilities, while we might be doing some different things about facilities than before, I think it's helpful to understand that we have a different student enrollment level now than we did 15 years ago. We're in a different environment. Now, I know we're still hoping to be able to pull in some other students, by some of the things we're doing, but I think that would help people understand why we're having to think things differently, because we're not in the same place as we were. But I think it should be very clear from what you mentioned that things changed for the district when we left DSEG, and so we need to consider that when we look at those numbers.
Good deal.
But thank you for raising that point. I think that's a really important one.
And Mr. Bailey, I'm glad you brought that point up, and Director Adams. And then right when you're putting together this financial 20-year view, then I would request that like you separate it from when when we had DSEG, when we had a lot of students, and then doing a summary, and then going forward, and then so we could do and then an even comparison, especially no matter if we're going to share it out with the public and of course for members of the board, to where it is easy to follow is what I'm saying, because everybody's not used to looking at financial statements or balance sheets or just accounting period. So as clear as we can make it to where a person could kind of look and just follow along with it.
Okay, will do.
And I do want to take the opportunity just to continue to say that as a district, I still believe that and then we definitely need to do a very robust campaign right for recruitment and retention, no matter of our students. I don't think that we are a very large city, and then we are a district that provide resources not only to our Little Rock families, but also to families outside of our district, to school entities outside of our district, whether it be through services or extracurricular activities. And so since our district does have a very robust menu of services and opportunities, then we need to be very intentional and very bold about promoting what all we have in our district to attract our students back and families back into our district, to where we can continue to have a financially healthy district, especially since we are also serving other educational entities within our city. So that is just something I do want to just put out there to remind and to get folks thinking about what type of campaign we can do to engage and to recruit, to have a sound district, a sustainable district, really. Director Adams, I see that you have muted, and then we'll go on to
yes,
Mr. Bailey.
Thank you. I'm thinking about Mr. Bailey. Again, this was for me that what might be helpful, that if we did that like kind of a long view, if we had a timeline where we saw how the revenues went up and down, and we saw how the enrollment went up and down, and it was clearly marked to help us out about when the desegregation changed. And I think it would also, if there was also another line that could let us know when facilities changed. You know, for instance, when Roberts Elementary opened, when Pinnacle View Middle School opened, when we closed elementary schools. You know, I think that to have the context for how those things impacted our enrollment, perhaps, and also perhaps, you know, why the decisions were made when they were made around, you know, reducing the number of schools. Not to argue about that, but again, just to have as big a picture as possible for context so that we could understand this particular moment in time as best that we can.
And two, thank you guys.
Thank you.
And two, I think it's an honorable mention, if you will. Our schools that are in most need, I think it's important to highlight that, like, these are older Pulaski County schools that was brought, that Little Rock at some point took over. And so we are having to repair structural issues on how they were built back then. Like, you know, for instance, we have a school that sits on an active spring. I guess back then they didn't know that or realize it. And or else we have schools that contract work was done in-house. And this was before Little Rock got it. And so we have inherited a lot of issues with some of our older buildings. So just thought I'll just make an honorable mention about that. We're still, for those that are tracking with us, we're still on our financial report. We just heard from Mr. Trumper as he gave us the past few years review of where we were and where we're at now for 2019 finances. Mr. Bailey, thank you, Mr. Trumper, for coming and sharing and answering our questions. Mr. Bailey,
President Hatter, just
please.
real quick, I just thank you so much, and Mr. Poore and Mr. Bailey, members of the board, for being with you all. I'm happy to stay on the call if you'd like me to stay on the call. If not, I may head home, but I'll serve at your all's pleasure.
You all, do we, and Mr. Bailey, Superintendent, you guys chime in. Do we need Mr. Rumper to stay on with us, or is he able to head home?
I think that we're okay with allowing him to leave and he can start to work on his homework assignment that you all gave him. So we'll go put him to work yet, but we're going to let him out of here.
Thank you, Mr. Poore. You are reading my mind.
Right. Thank you.
You all have a great evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank
This
you.
has been very helpful. Thank you.
So,
Ms. Hatter, if it's okay, we'll have Mr. Bailey continue on with his presentation about moving us forward.
Yes, and then if you have the answer to my question at some point, you could weave it in and just note it that that's the answer.
I'll start off with it down before the computer gremlins get me. So basically, a fund balance and reserve is the same thing. So how a fund balance is created, you bring in more revenue than you actually have expenses in a given year. So that's typically what you're trying to do. Once you get a fund balance to a point where you feel comfortable, I mean, you can continue to grow it. You can allocate additional money for capital improvements. What the district has historically done over the past, I would say 25 to 30 years, was do something for benefits, or do something, or put it back into salaries, or hire additional staffing. But enrollment right now has been decreasing for a while. So and fund balance is going to kind of trend down there if you don't make the necessary expense cuts. But want to actually show you this as well. This is from the campaign we had before. And these are some of the historical pieces that kind of go along with the presentation we just had on some of the second lien accomplishments we done 2017, along with any projects if we did that extension again in the future. So, of course, the biggest part we had was the McClellan redo. We had some HVAC upgrades for air quality. We had planned on their security system, smart board technology, LED lighting, and then, you know, the board could prioritize any other projects or prioritize those as well. So if we could move on, we'll start jumping into the audit as well.
Yes, please go ahead and move forward.
Madam Chair, could I ask just one real quick question? One thing that, you know, continues to come up is about the priority of McClellan. Could you just, for the board's edification, for the public's edification, what is the budget to replace the McClellan campus, to rebuild McClellan, replace Cloverdale? What are we looking at in that one item?
I would say it's going to be roughly about $60 million. Costs have kind of increased with the pandemic, but once you actually, you know, put those different subs out to bid and different things, we can get a guaranteed maximum price. But right now, construction costs are a little bit higher, but you know, all that may change in the next few months or the next year or so. But anywhere between 55 and 60 million, I would err more on the 60 million side.
Mr. Bailey, how much did Southwest cost?
We were at 103 million, plus another about $7 million for contents.
Okay, and is that project significantly different? I mean, is the cost difference in what you're projecting based on a difference in the scope of the project?
Yeah, it's actually scope of the square footage, so the building won't be quite as big. You won't have as much groundwork to do as well. We had to cut back quite a bit of the soils in Southwest, like clay, and you have to cut back really deep and bring in piers and do different other things to get the foundation solid on that. Southwest is a major school, a big campus. So redoing the McClellan site, I mean, it's I think 1/3 of the acreage that Southwest is. So, and it's already cleared. You already have, you know, the soil pretty much at a stable point. We'll have to cut back some of the piers that's under the building as it's demolished.
And Mr. Bailey, just to make sure people understand what you mean by that, with Southwest Little Rock, the district had to stabilize the ground because the ground, in order to make sure that the school didn't sink in or cracks happened because of that land being a wetland, or and so the district had to spend a lot of resources in building the ground to make it secure to where the building will not shift as much right as it settles.
That is correct.
Just wanted to make that clear, for people that are tracking. And with McClellan, that isn't the issue of creating that ground support as much.
Yeah, you don't have any road improvements. You already have utility connections and different things like that as well that save you some money. So. But as we jump into the audits, I believe we have about 14 years of audits out on our website for you all to peruse. I'm gonna go over the 2019 audit. Our 2020 audit is being completed now by legislative auditors. That report should be probably turned over to the legislative committee sometime in February, and we'll probably get our report late February, early March, somewhere in there. So hopefully you all have had an opportunity to at least look at one of the audits out there, but I'm gonna cover this as well. So up until 2015, we actually did what was called gap audits, where we actually converted our financials into government financials, but the state of Arkansas only requires districts to do regulatory basis, and actually mandated right now for regulatory basis. So before 2015, we actually paid about $100,000 to convert our financials over to gap, and we paid another $50,000 for a private audit. All that funding is saved now. We do the regulatory basis, so we don't have to convert, and we actually have legislative audits, so we don't pay for that as well. So, but these financials here will be regulatory basis financials. And they put that in place because all districts don't actually have accountants or CFOs. So the requirements for a district is to have a superintendent and a bookkeeper. And I guess you need at least one teacher to be a district. So this allows every district to be able to go with regulatory basis of accounting. So as we go through this, it has a table of contents. Typically, most of the audits about 35 to 45 pages or so out there. In the first part, it goes through, it's called an independent audit report. It's going to tell what their responsibilities, what they're actually doing, what our responsibilities as management is. And you can kind of scroll through that. I'm not going to read all this for you. Of course, it's online as well, and we'll hit some of the highlights there. Things you would notice on here when it talks about a basis for adverse opinion on the U.S. General Accepted Accounting Principles, they always going to have to give an adverse opinion because these are not prepared in General Accepted Accounting Principles. They're prepared on a regulatory basis, which is required by this act you see here, Act 2002-01 of 2005, which is the basis of accounting other than that gap that we're going to call it. So they'll have another adverse opinion there, and then the next opinion will be based on the regulatory basis. So if you notice here, it says, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to the above present fairly in all material respects to the respective regulatory basis financial position of each major governmental fund and the aggregate remaining fund information of the district as of June 30th, 2019. Are you all following me so far? And please stop me if you have any questions. If you look back prior audits before 2015, those statements won't be in there because they were actually GAAP financial statements. So we were actually converting our financial statements over basically for our bondholders to get a higher rating. But we have it's called a state intercept program now. So if you don't make your bond payments, they can intercept your tax payments. So bonds are very secure for investors. I'm going to scroll down, and you'll have another section, which is a report on internal control over financial reporting and compliance with other matters. And for those that don't know what financial controls, internal controls are, basically they're stop gaps in your financial system to stop fraud or to make sure things are being reported correctly or your financial statements aren't being presented with any material misstatements on it. So, and this is a report that talks about the internal control part. So it's 3 portions that the audit attests to. So, and let me see if it gives down here on this report. And it tells you the purpose of this report as well. So the next portion of the audit we'll cover here is they have to do a compliance on all federal programs out there with the internal control over the federal programs. And I mean, it has the same, you have the management responsibility and what their responsibility is for it. They'll give an opinion on it right here. In our opinion, the district complied in all material aspects for the financials for the federal programs. The audit, reading the audit can be kind of boring. Then you actually have, if you had any findings, it would come in the management letter. It's the next portion here, which I have on the screen here. And these were the findings we had here. So the findings typically have been over the last few years have been internal findings that we've discovered some theft or unauthorized purchases. Prior to 2015, we actually had an internal audit department, which we would typically, if we had any discrepancies, we actually send it over there. I'm actually responsible for it now, along with my assistant. If there are any other investigations, we may even get the police involved in some of those as well. So any theft we ever discover that we can actually prove is always turned over to the prosecuting attorney. We contact the police department as well. And in one case, we actually have the Secret Service on one of those. So if you notice here, it's always, that's where the finding portion is. And I'm gonna go over the findings for the last 4 years as well on a separate document right after this so we can discuss those in detail. The next portion we go through the audit is basically all the financial statements put together. And I'm not sure if y'all have any questions about those, but I'm gonna scroll through fairly quick, but while you can just see it on the screen until we get kind of to the bottom. I mean, it shows all our revenues and all our expenses. Then we have a portion on here which is notes to the financial statement. So it's in its summary of significant accounting policies and different things that might have changed. See if I can find one on here. So this is one of the major reporting things that you see at the top on January 28, 2015. Arkansas Department of Education assumed control of Little Rock School District and dissolved the local school board. There are no component units. So, I mean, things that happen like that, they have to actually note in the actual audit. For next year, I guess the note would be that the local school board is back. So, just some more notes. We'll scroll down. These are just additional items about our internal controls and our policies. Go down to the very bottom here. I mean, it's very detailed. So, it talks about our teacher retirement and different things like that. So, I would at least have you read one of our audits out there and just go through it. I mean, all of them are pretty much going to be state most of the same stuff there until you actually get to any findings. With the exception, the financials will change a little bit. So one of the things that I talked about, so they do look at all our federal programs and make sure we're in compliance with all those. So they'll take, they may have 1 year where they actually may just take all of Title I or all of child nutrition and go through all that, but they actually look for compliance on all our federal programs, and it's listed here on our schedule, expenditures of federal awards here. So if you ever have any question about what federal awards we're getting, you can always go to this audit and see what we actually received. And this last page is a summary of the audit results here. If you look over here, you always want to have a no checked over here for any material weakness identified, significant deficiencies identified, is no, none reported. So we really hadn't had it. I don't think we've had any internal control issues at all. So, and of course, at the end it has, there were no findings in the prior audit for this, no findings in the federal award portion there. But once you jump over here, and these are all the responses. So these, I compiled our four, I think I pulled 5 years of audit. 1 year we didn't actually have a finding out there, but we always have to send a response back to the Legislative Audit Committee. If we have a multi-year finding of the same thing, we actually have to appear before the Legislative Audit Committee at the Capitol. And that actually, they may ask questions, they may not, but you need to be there present to answer any questions. But this is one here, and we actually discovered this. All these findings we have received over the last few years have been internally discovered. It wasn't discovered by the auditors. So as we are running different reports, we're looking at overtime and different other things like this. A few people overtime looks like it was excessive, so we started drilling down a little bit more. And actually, I went on site and actually did this investigation and pulled different records. And basically on this one, for the finding of the 53,000, I pulled 2 years of records. We actually pulled 3 years, but the actual bookkeeper was putting himself into after-school programming and other different, across different funds, and it wasn't caught by the principal. The principal actually was out for a while due to, I think, a surgery or something. So it gave him an opportunity to do some stuff that wasn't right. Of course, we went through and this is what we discovered: 53,000 unauthorized payments. Now he didn't have any timesheets in the record books where you typically keep everybody else. Everything else was complete, but his was missing. So that has been turned over, of course, to the prosecuting attorney. I believe they have actually served that. We've got notification from the insurance department. So when we have items like this, we file a police report, and it's actually covered through our insurance department. So we will get reimbursed for these funds. So the funds don't just go away. So, and they have to pay restitution. Plus the auditor automatically reports this to the prosecuting attorney as well. Did y'all have any questions? Stop me before I get to any of these other ones. Ms. Director Nolan, you look like you might have one.
It's a general one about our internal controls as a whole. And so if you want to go through these.
Okay, gotcha. So the next one, was another discovery. We discovered another person, and typically, if you're going to have theft, it's going to be in the area of payroll for the most part, or pro card. That's where your majority of the expenses are. So we focus quite a bit on that and running different reports. My administrative assistant actually worked for internal audit for years, and when that department was shut down, I had an opening here, so I hired her. So she's very good at running reports, and we are a pretty good team to go through them. But this person actually repaid the district back, but we still, you know, if anytime we find any mismanagement, I'm going to recommend for termination. I mean, that's going to be my recommendation. Whether we uphold it or not, that's going to always be my recommendation. We've been burned in the past. Boards previous to even the board that was removed, they put people back that actually found just have been stealing money, gave them another chance, and they did the same thing, and we got burnt again. So my recommendation is always going to be, if I find it, is going to be a recommendation for termination. On this second audit here, let's see. The big audit we still have that's outstanding that you'll see this multi-year. It was dealing with the Department of Early Childhood. That amount was actually transferred from Little Rock Police over to the Secret Service, since they can transfer it if it's over 50,000. So they've been working on it for the last 2 years. So hopefully that will come to an end this year sometime. So the initial agent we had on, he actually got promoted and went to, I think, presidential protection. And we had another agent on, and that agent was transferred somewhere else. So I think we're on the third Secret Service agent. So hopefully that will be closed out. The third one on this one you see is $700 for employee Christmas gifts. So this is one we had to reiterate with our actual principals, where they actually bought, I think this one was actually a school, like a beanie, like a stocking cap for his staff if they were doing bus duty and different other things like that. But the purpose he put on there was for a gift now. So we make sure we tell, you know, it has to be for school purposes, and basically any purchases, we look through a lens of what the normal public would look at, would question if they saw this purchase. With this pass the sniff test pretty much. So. Another one about the gate receipts here on this audit here. This person actually was terminated. I think he did something outside the district, but we really couldn't prove where this money went to. It just came up missing. The person said they collected and put it in somebody's office that wasn't there. The door was unlocked. So we checked, you know, footage and different other things. So, but it was really his responsibility to make sure that money was secure. Number 17 on here, this was another one I investigated as well. So this person is actually no longer in the district as well. I think this was the first legislative audit we actually received here, and I don't think, Mr. Poore, this wasn't your part on here, but we used to have actually a district issued credit card for the superintendent, and a lot of those purchases might have been actually for board expenditures as well. So when we did like food for meetings and different things like that, or, you know, soft drinks back there for deliberations, just think the documentation wasn't as sufficient as it needed to be for those purchases to show the business purposes, but that's what it was for. We also had a finding on here for a reimbursable board member for mileage, and based on the mileage laws we had at that time, if they traveled, you know, to a meeting or back and forth, they would put, you know, the meeting. Just wasn't enough detail for the auditors on that, so it needs to be specific. So I came to a board meeting to discuss, you know, something like that. So it just can't be I came to admin, I went to Rockefeller School or things like that. So, and this will be one if once we start meeting back in person, if we start back reimbursing board members for that mileage, that documentation has to be for that business purpose, has to be very clear on that reimbursement request. And I believe that finding number 3 is when we had a vacancy in our HR department, and we had a staff member assume that role. So, and that, I know that's been rectified. And that's pretty much the findings we've had over the last few years. We hadn't had any findings as far as internal controls or misstatement of any revenue or expenditures.
Good deal. Well, I think you did a wonderful job going over this, and then of course kudos to your staff for finding these misappropriation or misuse of funds. Director Nolan, I know you had some questions about internal controls, and it looked like Mr. Bailey's staff have them in place, especially since they was able to catch some things that past auditors have missed. Go ahead, please, Director Nolan.
Well, and I do not have an accounting background, so I may not use the correct terminology, but I just noticed that these findings of misappropriation and problems, it looked like we had 2017, 2018, 2019, and I was just going to ask, what have we put in place? I was calling it internal controls, but that might not be the right word.
They are. That's the right word.
That's what...
to make sure that those things, you know, what has changed now? So we don't have to go through all the controls, but what changes have been made?
Okay, I can kind of, now put this in layman's term for the ones that are watching. So if you have a house, you can buy a security alarm on your house, but that doesn't keep anybody from breaking in there. So people still break in with a security alarm. So the internal controls are really to catch and alert you when something may be going wrong. It won't stop a person that wants to do wrong, but hopefully you'll be able to catch it within a certain amount of time to correct that situation. So if you have something, you know, that's gone on for 8 years and you didn't catch it, something was wrong with your internal controls. So typically it's something going on for a year or 2 years. So the stop gaps we pretty much have is for department heads and principals actually sign off on those payroll documents, on all pro card documents. I really stress that, so I don't have a rubber stamp for anything. Everything that comes across my desk, I'm actually signing and reviewing. And I tell principals, we spent too much time in school. You have all these years of work experience to throw it away, not looking at one piece of document. So most of all the things we have in place, we have a lot of different internal controls in place, a lot of different levels of approval to actually catch this. So that's why we were fortunate enough to catch these things without it getting too far ahead. The one in early childhood was a very, very sophisticated one. We almost caught it 2 years prior to catching it here, but that person was actually, I mean, it was very sophisticated what that person was doing. I mean, cutting and pasting, making invoices look correctly. And we actually got a tip off a pro card transaction, which we actually investigated and went to Walmart to get more detail. And it came up to be a gift card. And that was the thing that actually opened Pandora's box for us, where we could actually go back to Amazon and look at more purchases. And I actually went through 6,000 actually individual records on Amazon to look at the purchases and separate them based on what I thought was fraudulent. So that was one. Yep.
Mr. Bailey, have that been, is that still in the process of being resolved?
It is. So it'll probably most likely go before, I don't know if it's a grand jury, but it's moved up the chain. I actually talked with my director of security today to get them to get an update from the Secret Service if we could.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully on this upcoming week, I'll have an update on that. So we try to get at least a monthly update. It's just taking a long time. They had affidavits from Amazon and from Walmart.com and a lot of online. This is all pretty much online shopping. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I don't have my view gallery view. I'm gonna see if I can put it back in gallery view so I can see it.
Stop my share.
Okay, but I do want to say that I appreciate your due diligence. Not only is it something that is part of what you do in your profession of just making sure that controls are in place, but also looking at those hot topic areas that to where it's easy to steal or misuse funds, which is in the payroll, which is in credit card use, which is in reimbursements, as well as fuel card purchases. And so just someone that have worked in that field, I appreciate you for being completely diligent and finding these misuse.
And I want to give kudos to our bookkeepers and our principals and our department heads as well. So they actually do the ground-to-ground work there, so they do a great job on reviewing those. Just anytime you have, 35 and at one time 4,000 employees, you're not going to have 100% of everybody doing the right thing all the time. So.
Mm-hmm. And thank you, and thank you to your staff as well. Director Johnson, I see you have unmuted. You went
Yes.
off mute.
I have a question for Mr. Bailey. In your cash flow operations, how do you handle that? Is that a one-man team or is that a two-man team?
It's about a 3-person team. So between myself, my director of financial service, and her assistant director, typically cash flow has been pretty good. Our cash flow this year was down quite a bit, so we really had to monitor it between payroll and the different expenses out there, especially after we didn't get the debt extension out there because we had other expenses with the Southwest High School for the furnishings and different things. So this was the tightest year we've had till we actually receive our large amount of tax settlement in the fall. So, but of course we didn't have to go out for a loan or anything, but it was just very tight. So we try to monitor that very closely. I mean, it's monitored every day, but as far as, looking at seeing if we have major construction projects going on, how much cash is going out and what's going to be coming in. Of course, we got to always meet payroll and your taxes, payroll taxes and different things like that, and debt service payments.
Okay, so that's part one, but part two, and I know we have a pandemic, so we really don't have the cash flow as like when we have a football game or a basketball game and you have that money coming in. That's basically what I was referring to. But
okay, I'm sorry. I was talking about the big money.
Okay. That's fine. I'm good. This is part two. So when you have something like that gentleman you said he put the money on somebody's desk. So he acted alone. He collected the money and he put the money on somebody's desk. So he didn't have that second person with him to say, hey, we can't do this, or we have to.
Oh, no, it was verified. So they have a verified account at the end of the game. I think the bookkeeper might have been out that morning, but he said he laid it on the desk and the bookkeeper came in and it wasn't there. But, well, a portion of it, I think, was actually missing out of this situation. So, I mean, we go back and look at cameras and see who's gone in and out of the office. We actually have safety and security do investigation. On some situation, it's not just as clear. So, I mean, on those that is clear, we're going to recommend for termination. On those that's not clear, we're going to write them up and try to put some more internal controls in that area. So.
Okay. All right. Thank
you. Thank you, Director Johnson and Mr. Bailey. Thank you for your presentation and education of going over the audits and then breaking it down and putting it in layman terms to where everyone is able to understand. Just for a clarity piece, with cash handling, with that, Director Johnson was talking, it sounds like that was a snack bar or else money from a game. And so with football game, yeah. And so with cash handling procedures in the closeout to go over to payables to send them in, have controls been put in place for that to where it's a 2-person drop off, or else there are levels to ensuring that monies are received correctly, especially when dealing with cash?
Yes, ma'am. It was actually already in place. It was a 2 verification account and a 2-person drop off. So things just happen at times. So my goal is to get away from those cash collections and go more toward electronic payments. It's hard to trick electronic payments because they're always there. So that's the risk we typically take when you're collecting cash at any event. Hopefully, it's all accounted for and all make it to the bank. So
I totally understand about handling cash. It's a tricky a situation because the human eye is only able to catch so much, and cameras are only able to catch whatever is in its view. So I totally understand that piece, and I appreciate you.
I apologize for going over 7 minutes, so I'm gonna try to hit my next 2 sessions pretty quick.
Okay, and that's where I was going. Great segue. We have spent just about an hour and 10 minutes on this portion, and you could take it away with the next.
All right. So just going, we'll hit ESSER now. And basically what ESSER stands for is Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Funding. And you'll hear us referred to as ESSER 2 funds. I have some different links here. You can go on the actual Department of Ed's website and get a lot of information on the actual COVID page. Minimize my screen here so I can see everything here. So as we go through, just ask me any questions you might have. But on December 27th of 2020, this is basically Corona Virus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriation Act signed into law this money. So I have some more links that's linked to the department's page as well. But Congress set aside $54.3 billion for ESSER 2. Little Rock was allocated a little over $28.6 million there. On round one of the CARES funding, we allocated roughly about $6 million. So you can see that was a significant jump right here. The things that are associated with the application insurances must be submitted to the department, which we've already done that as well. And we'll show those assurances as well. Remember that all federal funds are reimbursable funds. So we have this allocation out there. We don't have it in our bank. So you have to spend the money and get reimbursed for it. So all federal funds are reimbursable. Funds must be obligated by September 30th of 2023. And basically what obligations mean, you have to actually have a plan to spend those funds. And typically that plan is a purchase order or some type of order already into the system. So that basically gives the state 3 months to make sure you liquidate that money, and the liquidation is by December 31st of 2023. That liquidation date may change because typically we're out during that winter break during that time, so they may push that up a little bit, but funds must be obligated, so that they have to be actually encumbered or a PO has to be issued by that time. So, and we have to actually spend the money by the end of 2023. For CARES funding 1, the deadline is 22, the same date, September 30th and December 31st, but 2022. So looking at the allowable expenses for ESSER 2, I'll let y'all look at that as well. So some of the things that I know that's come up over the webinars we've had and the Zoom meetings, can we pay bonuses? No, bonuses aren't allowed. Can't buy buses, things like that. So this is basically federal funds are really to supplement what you're currently doing now and to help with the schools continue their operation. So no to bonuses, but these are things that the allowable expenditures, and I'm going to get into a little more detail on this here. So as we look at the allowable expenses, there are basically 5 focus areas that money is made for. So food security, what we call direct student support and continuous learning opportunities, of course, technology, systemic procedures, and facilities. Facilities was a new one that was added on ESSER 2 that wasn't actually added for ESSER 1 funds. But as we get down to those, it's even a little more granular. So these are actually the areas of expenditure code, and we actually have to code the funds out to. So, and basically these are areas that we can spend the funds for. So any activities allowed under what's called ESSA or IDA, which is SPED, or Adult Ed, Carl Perkins, that's career. McKinsey-Vento is the homeless program. Any school leadership resources that are needed, services for special populations, mental health support, the extended learning, your summer learning, your before and after school supplemental activities, addressing learning loss. And I'm reading this because it may be small on you all's screen on the PowerPoint. Educational technology, and that's educational technology, shouldn't be like administrative technology. Coordinating activities for digital programming, planning, improve LEA responses to emergencies, and LEA is basically the school district. Training for staff on prevention of disease spread, supplies for sanitation of buildings, coordination with other public agencies for coronavirus response. And that was proven when we actually partnered with the different hospitals for the day count last year. Continuation of operations and employment, food services, facility repairs, and improvement of air quality. So we have a few new ones here, and I have new next to it. So 170 is new addressing learning loss. So that's a big one there. As kids have been out, and I mean, they pretty much have to dive into this new learning that we have now. So they want to make sure you prioritizing the learning loss out there. Of course, with facility repairs, that's a new one, and improved air quality is a new one as well. So, questions so far?
No, you're doing great. Keep going.
Okay. So as we looked at this and talking with Superintendent Poore, kind of saw this as 4 phases. And these phases can kind of be going on at the same time, but we see phase one as being immediate right now. What do we need to do to finish out the rest of the school year and get prepared for next year? Maybe some additional PPE, Chromebooks. We actually have the COVID leave and substitute reimbursement. Phase two is learning loss initiative, summer school, social emotional learning, and things like that, professional development. Phase one and two can kind of go simultaneously, but things that we need to order that we know have a longer lead time, like we actually ordered Chromebooks last year in May. We actually received most of them in October when the pandemic hit. So if we know we need more Chromebooks, we need to go ahead and get that order in, probably ASAP, and any other PPE. Phase three, we'll be looking at, facility focus, and we still have to talk about these and kind of prioritize those things as well. So it may include interactive whiteboards. Our whiteboards now are coming up to about 11 years old. We actually bought those with what we call ARA, or stimulus funds, from 2009. Of course, it's time for to go to some flat panel actual boards with actual cameras that are inactive and everything. So maybe some air quality upgrades, and some network upgrades as well. So we kind of saw phase four as a contingency for the other phases. So if we kind of missed the mark on some of those other phases, we had to come back and maybe buy some more Chromebooks or do some more PPE or do some more things in phase two as far as learning loss and things like that. We may have a small contingency out there for that, or any other necessary expenditures we see as a district or board. So, Mr. Porter, did you want to jump in at all on that one?
Thank you, Kelsey. I think you covered it well, and I'll let you just keep on going, then we'll address the questions.
Okay. So the next part as well, and Dr. Owa is going to be chairing this Ready for Learning committee. He's already chairing that, but this is kind of how we saw a committee to come together to look at some of these items that we just kind of discussed in some of those other phases, especially in phase probably 2 and 3 more so. Let me just go back to phase 2 and 3, learning loss, so the public can see that. But these people have been identified to serve on that committee. We'll have other ex officio people like myself and probably Mr. Poore and the other cabinet members that serve as ex officio, but these would probably be the people that really putting together the plan and trying to prioritize and giving us ideas on the ways we actually need to, utilize these funds. So,
Mr. Bailey,
I think Dr. Owa is available.
Mr. Bailey, if I can just chime in. This committee,
yes, sir.
Well, actually, we wanted to have a representation of every person within the district, community person in the district who will be impacted by this. And so you'll see teachers, leaders, parents, parent engagement facilitators, representative from the community as well as the medical community. But they won't make decisions. Our role is to provide a list of recommendations for the superintendent and the board to review based on their roles within the district, what they feel like we should move forward with in expending those ESSER 2 funds. So I just want to make sure we're clear that they know that they're not going to make any decisions. It's just recommendations for you all.
All right, we're down to questions. Any questions?
I would just like to offer up, I had this conversation or mentioned this with our superintendent and deputy about at some point having a lessons learned from being virtual with distance learning. We have had a school year and a half of this exercise of being virtual. So looking at what worked, what did not work, and have a round table, a discussion that includes administrators, teachers, students, and families, not necessarily just families that had the opportunities to stay at the house, or else students that had trouble and they was able to fare out okay both on throughout, but also looking at families and students that struggled really hard, and then they was able to get their wings and stabilize a little bit to move forward. So that is just something that maybe I looked at the names on the committee, but having maybe and that may be something separate, just to have a lessons learned group of people getting together to figure out what actually worked for them and what did not. Director Woods, you're recognized.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So Kelsey, does the sick leave that we approved a couple of weeks ago, does that fit somewhere into the $28 million in ESSER funds?
Yes, sir, it does. Yeah, that's actually phase one that we have there. So yes, sir.
All right, very good. And then I heard you say that we can't do bonuses, but obviously you've heard me say before that I believe that we should pay our teachers and our staff that had to put in extra work at the beginning of the year to prepare for this very unique school year. Is there a way that rather than it being a bonus, in fact, I wouldn't really want it to be a bonus because it's a day that they worked. Is there a way that we can add a day to their contract and pay them for a day that they were supposed to have off, but certainly had to work before school started?
I think that would probably be, there's always avenue, but that would probably be an HR question going back to verify, you know, who actually worked and what, you know, hours they actually worked. So you want to always make sure your records are fairly clean. Typically best to do that before they actually are obligated to work. That may be something superintendent can discuss with the HR department as well. So.
Well, I understand. It's just not an issue that I want to let go of because, again, I continually say I don't think we should take advantage of people, but we should take care of people. And they were put in a very tough bind at the beginning of this year as we made some last minute changes to shift to virtual, a virtual start to the school year. And there was some last minute scrambling going on in every building. And I don't think that there's anyone in the district that would argue that every one of our teachers weren't burning midnight oil every night leading into the first day of school. And they were supposed to have that Friday off. And I would like us to find a way to pay them for that day that they certainly had to work. And if we could fit it into the extra $28 million in ESSER funds that we have, that would be a wonderful way to make sure that we take care of those employees. And I would rather err on the side of adding a contract day in the past and paying a few people who didn't work rather than not paying people who did work. So I would just like that for the team to be as creative as possible and intentional as possible about making that up to our staff. I guess the committee that you described, will they be, talk about how we might bolster summer school this year to make up for the loss of academic progress that we might otherwise want to have seen in a year like this?
Let me address that, Mr. Wood, and absolutely, that's what we have labeled as the learning loss. And so really, we want to look at it not only as what we might do during the summer school, but then also even into the fall. And we also have to take it into context that, our teachers, just for the very reasons you just shared, we have some teachers that are really tired right now, really burnt out. And so, what do we do to either incentivize them for the summer or to make that a shorter span of time to do some recovery of learning, with the concept that we can also use the fall, because these funds are available to us through 2023, but you don't want to, we got to move, we got to catch up, kids. Hope that answers your question.
It does. I hope that'll be a focus to, spend as much as we can on helping students recover from this terrible year. So.
And just keep in mind as well, when they actually implement these allocations, they put it out real fast, and sometimes rules come afterwards. So there's going to be some reporting requirements that haven't been developed yet, the same as they did with the 2009 stimulus money. So there's going to be some reporting requirements that we're yet to see. So we have to be very careful with this and make sure documentation is pretty tight on it, because I'm sure they're going to audit. Little Rock is always audited because we're one of the larger districts and larger allocations, so and right here locally. So we'll probably be one on the spotlight. So we want to make sure we spend the money in accordance to strict guidelines.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you. Thank you for all your work on this.
I also want to show you all one more document as well related to this. So let me close this out here. Second. Close it out. So you all have this a part of your board package as well. So it's going to actually show you the allocation if you were interested in other districts around the state as well. I gave you the whole package, but down here, I think I highlighted Little Rock here. You can see the actual allocation there as well. We scroll down a little bit further on here. Let's keep going here. This is actually what I was talking about as far as the application and assurances. Are y'all able to hear me okay? Okay.
Yes.
So you can see Little Rock and our LEA number. These are all the things we certified that we're going to do, abide by, and how we're going to, take care of the funds and spend them accordingly. So, on this assurances, we had to check these focus areas. We checked all 5 focus areas there. You can see food security. And it gives a breakdown a little more in detail than what I actually had on my PowerPoint for you all to go back through and look at, and what, direct student support and continuous learning opportunity looks like there. And, it's pretty detailed. The technology piece down there, that's fairly simple. What systemic procedures look like there as well. Facilities, they actually just had it already checked for us pretty much there. So, but you can see the things that's associated with that. Of course, Mr. Poor signed it on the 20th. We got that uploaded and sent over to the state and to our InterStar program immediately as well. So these are the program codes that I covered. I pretty much gave you the program description over here. You can look at the budget category. It gives them more detail, what that means over there than what I actually had on that PowerPoint. So you all have this all in your package as well. And it's online for the public to look at too. So, and I believe that I think that's the end of that one.
Would it be possible for us to get a monthly or quarterly report of what we're doing with these funds, on an ongoing basis, especially when it comes to, well, I don't know, just.
Yes, sir.
Everything's important, so I don't want to highlight one thing, but I see a lot of opportunity here for us to hit the ground running with taking advantage of this opportunity and making the environments better. And so anyway,
it's going to be a lot of work. 28 million is a lot of money.
Yeah, and so, I'm sorry, it begs the question: how did we do that? That's phenomenal when you look at the Springdale at 17,800,000, and they're the only other district that rivals our attendance numbers, but they're larger than us, and we got $11 million more dollars. We did quite well.
I believe it was based on your Title I population, your free and reduced population, what they actually allocated. So we have a higher percent. So.
Okay. Wow. Well.
All right.
That's great.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Bailey, for Director Nolan. I see you just muted. Do you have something to add to our question?
Yes, it's just a suggestion. It might be helpful for us, especially for phase 3. Mr. Poor, I believe last time when we were talking about COVID, you asked if we would want to utilize another survey. That might be a useful tool, and maybe to get feedback from internally from staff and teachers, but also from the community, like present some of these options and see how they rank them in terms of priority. So that could help us decide moving forward.
Thank you. And Ms. Nolan, I think the way I'd address that is probably letting that committee help us frame when and where we might want to do some of that type of thing, of pushing back out so we get larger context. So I don't disagree. And we had good success with that over the summer as we put together our first Ready for Learn plan. So thank you.
Okay.
Only have one more document to present, and I'll be finished. I think this is my longest presentation on record.
Yes. Do you think you could do it in a couple of minutes?
I can do it real quick.
And I promise his colleagues are not going to give him a bad time at all how long he's gone tonight, because he has been so thorough and good with you as a board. So we're excited about that.
So I know we've talked quite a bit about budget as well. So, and I want to talk about budget. So budget is really the effect of what we've done. It's really not the cause. So the cause is typically we're looking at, you have independent and dependent variables. So the biggest part that we have to look at is enrollment. And I have this, I think I shared this with you all before. This is kind of a highlight of enrollment. So when we actually closed some schools a few years back, our enrollment was down about 750 kids, 749 to be exact. Over that period of time, we've lost some additional students. Now, this year may be unusual because of the pandemic, and this amount includes a big part of pre-K, 900 of pre-K, but we've lost, a significant number of students. If this pans out for this year, the last 3 years, we're down about 2,400 students. So decisions have to be made, and your budget is going to reflect your spending accordingly to your student population. So the things we have to look at when I'm saying data-driven financial decisions is number of facilities needed, minimum enrollment standards. We do have capital improvement needs. Those requests are going to start coming to the board. So we've done a good job, and you saw Mr. Trumper's report where we've refinanced and we put about $30 million of savings back into capital improvement, along with the second lien of $92 million and some of those energy efficient programs of $12 million. So and along with our fund balance, we spent probably over $200 million back on capital improvements over the last 10 years or so. So we got to look at future capital improvement needs and financing options. But a big part of our budget, of course, the biggest part of our budget is staffing. And that's looking at, right sizing based on the current enrollment in schools or program and course offerings, salary schedules and benefits and things like that. So all that ties into the budget. The budget is easy as far as revenue projections. We know we have about a 2.5% to 2.75 growth over the last 5 years. We have that charted out there, and you can actually kind of project that over as far as your tax revenue. Now your state and local revenue coming in, that's going to be dependent on the number of students you have in. So, I mean, the biggest part of the budget is actually determine how we see our enrollment looking over the next 3 to 5 years. So, and that's how we'll kind of chart that, and that's gonna kind of control staffing as well. So wanted to show you that again. But as far as pretty much the last document is the monthly financial statements here. These are fairly boring, and still working with a vendor, and I'll show that to you here shortly. But what we ended the year on our first half of our tax collection up $6 million, which is very good if you look there. Of course, we went in kind of conservative end of the year, but people end up coming and paying their taxes. So hopefully the second half of the year look just as good, and maybe we won't be in a deficit state of spending for this past fiscal year. But we do have some challenges ahead of us. Basically, if enrollment continues where it is or just maintain where it is, we do have to make some cuts and make some tough decisions. So, and those decisions can come in a various package, whether that's staffing, it could be benefits, it could be schools, or whatever it might be at that point. So. Nothing really highlighted on here. The biggest part I want to show you all on this monthly was our revenue coming in about $6 million over. I'm gonna go to the expense statement down here as well. Basically, our balances are looking good on what we have as far as our salaries, and these are our top lines up here. So we're still $8 million plus on certified, and with stipends another $2.5 million on classified. So we still have approximately about 140 vacancies out there. Most departments have left their positions vacant because we just hadn't needed them. So that's going to hopefully help us out with our budget. But the biggest part is revenue coming in from tax collection for this second half of the year.
Okay.
I think that's it for me, unless you all have any questions.
Okay. I'm going back to gallery view so I can see everybody.
All right, I'll stop my share.
Okay.
And things we talk about as far as distress as well, we've been in academic distress. We've never been in fiscal distress. We're on the only district in Pulaski County that's never been in fiscal distress. I don't plan on going there under my watch as well. We also have what's called facilities distress as well, and that's not taking care of your buildings, having buildings that are not warm, safe, and dry. So when we're looking at the budget, we have to make plans for facilities. We have to make plans on not to deficit spend. But the budget is more than just numbers. The budget is about resource allocation. So if you're trying to, help student achievement, you have to realign those resources to areas that you may see a higher prioritization. So But if we don't make those tough decisions, that resource allocation can't occur.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. I'm glad that you mentioned facility use and then how that plays a part of the budget as well, which it ties back right to the statement made earlier about our older buildings, particularly in Southwest. And so we do need to be mindful, and I am appreciative of you saying that you are not trying to take one of the largest districts into fiscal distress. So, but of course, you alone do not bear that responsibility.
President Hatter beat all of us now. I got a big team now.
Exactly. Director Adams, I'm going to put a pause in my statements, and you are recognized.
Thank you, Ms. Hatter. Mr. Bailey, when you were going through that quickly, you said something again about minimum enrollment standards, and I'm remembering that you mentioned that before. And help me if I'm understanding correctly, those are minimum enrollment standards that we could consider, but we don't have in place now. Is that correct?
Well, I think the minimum enrollment standards I'm talking about as far as different schools and different things. So when you're looking at some of those schools, maybe in Northwest Arkansas or different around the state, so the funding matrix is based on a 500 count school. So it allows you to have a certain amount of teachers, a certain amount of nurse and sped and different aspects like that. But if you have two schools that are 250 apiece, I mean, you're duplicating services. Typically, you're gonna have to have two principals. You got two sets of custodians, two sets of child nutrition. You probably have two nurses that maybe can serve both populations, maybe not. You may have different sped personnel in there and things like that, that you don't get what's called economies of scale by having two separate campuses where 500 together, you may still have two administrators. You may have a principal and an assistant principal, but you can cut down on some of those things. Typically, when we closed elementary, the average one was about $650,000 on savings as far as personnel costs on redundancy. But those are things, as we lost, 2,000, if we realized the 2,000 loss based on, the pandemic year, maybe some of those students will come back next year. Hopefully they will. But, those are the tough decisions. No one ever wants to talk about school closures, so.
But when you, thank you, Mr. Bailey. When you talk about standards, those are what other people have experienced, but is it right that we don't have those? We don't have any kind of standards where we have a policy that says,
no,
our schools are going to have a minimum of X number of students at this level. And if they don't, but are you recommending that we do that we consider that in the future?
I think that would give guidance to administration as well. So we have staffing standards out there, along with, there are some exceptions, to schools based on, the geographical locations. But yeah, those standards, we discussed them. I think probably when you were on the board, when we did the Fannie Howard, when we talked about a middle school, minimum. Mm-hmm. About 750, elementary to create a efficient scale, probably 450 to 500 or so like that. But those are the type of things we kind of look at. There's going to be some variations out there, but if you get to something that's 200 or 250, you may have to look at it for a year and make considerations to do something different.
So this may be a Mr. Poor question with that. I guess I'm just trying to understand, because this has come up before when you mentioned it. And is this I'm thinking about a chicken and egg thing. Is this something that we would anticipate that the administration would be bringing a recommendation to us about, or would this be something that the administration would be would be waiting until the board asked for a recommendation?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Adams. And I would tell you that you will get a recommendation, proactive recommendation for us. Now, I want to put the community at ease. You will not see a recommendation for closing of schools this spring, but I do think that is something that this board will have to tackle for the following year. And we already have a consolidation that's taking place this year with people moving to J Fair. So we are going to receive some of what Mr. Bailey just shared of reduced cost by having two elementaries and the middle school all moving into one facility. So we are going to have some cost savings there. but we are going to have to do some further things, especially if our numbers don't increase on enrollment, and the administration will come at you. One last thing you asked about standards. The Community Advisory Board did approve last year, and I believe it was in June maybe, of a set of standards just on some basic staffing that are more of the service oriented, like how many assistant principals per building, per size, how many secretaries, and some of those things. So we did institute that, and those things are still in place right now.
Okay. Okay. So we would anticipate that further down the road that you all would be coming back to us with some recommendations in that area.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Ford, and thank you, Mr. Hatter, Ms. Hatter.
Thank you for your comments. And to it, not to keep reiterating, that's why doing a very bold and robust campaign to attract and retain students into our district is going to be extremely important. Just remember, we are going to have a smaller, leaner district by 2025. And when I say that, and I've been saying that, it is because we're continuously losing our students, and then as well as measurements that are being put in place that are considering underutilized buildings because of student enrollment and things like that. And so you guys, at some point soon, we're going to have to really have that strong, courageous conversations about looking at the sustainability of our district moving forward, right as we want a strong district after us, and for our children's children to be able to be proud to call home. And then we also have to start looking at some of our larger schools that have low numbers as well, to see what are we going to do at that secondary level. Director Nolan, you are recognized.
Well, and this piggybacks right off of what you were saying, because what I wanted to mention was we obviously have to make financial choices related to the loss of students, but we also really need a proactive plan for recruiting, re-recruiting some of these families that we have lost during COVID. And I've talked to Mr. Poore a little bit about this. I would really like to see us potentially have this presented to the board as a plan for how we are going to address the loss of students, and what steps we as a district or board members can take to try to address that problem. Because while we do need to make smart financial decisions adjusting for that, I also don't think we need to just accept it as a given that we're going to lose these students, and we need to work on re-recruiting these families back into the district.
Thank you, Director Nolan. I totally agree with you on that, because we should never accept low numbers as this is what it is and we have to deal with it. And again, you know, we have a very strong and robust, one of the greatest districts around that we provide services to, and we need to see how can we attract or regain those families that we are providing services to, and they're in a different district or different lane of education. So I agree and look forward to seeing that plan, a framework of that plan, or that plan come before the board. You guys, it is 9:01. We still have one more. Mr. Bailey?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you concluded your financial reports?
I am, unless there are additional questions.
Okay, seeing that there are none, we're going to move the agenda forward. Mr. Bailey, thank you so much for all of your hard work and dedication, and to your team, give them a hearty hello. So you might want to bring them donuts or something tomorrow.
All right, I will.
Superintendent Poore?
Yeah, and just to bridge one last thing, we're very fortunate to have a person of Mr. Bailey's caliber, and appreciate all the effort that went into the reports he gave tonight. And remember that one of the things that you received in your training, even from board members from other districts, the financial thing that tied to school districts is very complex, and it takes a good, sometimes people say a year, some people say 2 years, in order to really get the full grasp. You can start to get some good context through these conversations of what's important, but really diving into it, it is really not an easy thing to do. And the good thing is we can always go right to Mr. Bailey to get additional information, and we're going to just keep building your capacity on this. So thank you. And I'll switch to the topic now, Ms. Hatter, towards our last topic, which is our policy. And you know, we really had a robust conversation about these policies in our previous meeting and the first reading, and Mr. Walker has made adjustments. We've received comments from board members. These will need to be 2 separate action items tonight, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Walker to lead us through the first one on section 4.
Good evening. Section 4 is the student section. As we talked last month, the ASBA makes recommendations to the model policy originally adopted by the district in 2017. We look at those, incorporate those changes, have a hot conversation with Student Services, Dr. Fields, about that, and then it came before you all for a first reading. And since the first reading, in the packet that you received, there were some things that were highlighted, specifically in 4.27, which is the sexual harassment policy. There was an expansion of the definition of who could be potentially a sexual harasser beyond a district employee. The suggestion of Ms. Nolan, some language was added regarding supportive measures, and a footnote added in the confidentiality section that doesn't, I guess, curtail the right of the potential victim to discuss what happened. All of those, I believe, were Ms. Nolan's suggestions, and I think some other people contributed to that conversation. Now, since the submission of the materials to you all last Friday, there were a couple other changes that have been made to the document. Specifically, Ms. Nolan pointed out a typo on the first highlight where it indicated, you know, district employee and within or any individual inside of an LRSD property. I needed to close the parentheses there, and that has been adjusted. Mr. Adams pointed out a discussion I think that Ms. Calloway also raised last month in regard to a minor as a victim of sexual abuse. And there are other policies, specifically 3.38 and 8.34. That's in the personnel sections of the board policy manual. And that is the duty to report child abuse, maltreatment, or neglect. Mr. Adams suggested that be connected somehow. And so what I did was add those 2 policies to the list of cross-reference policies at the end. So what exists in your packet has a list of policies, the different personnel harassment policies, educational opportunity, district website, etc. So we added 3.38 and 8.34, which deals with child abuse and neglect. It adds information about the hotline, the phone number to call, and that kind of thing as a cross-reference. So those are the changes that were made since you got your packets on last Friday. And so unless there are questions, well, at this point I can entertain any questions, but if there are no questions, if this potentially may be ready for action as amended.
Okay, board, I'm going to open it up for one to see if we have a motion, and then for a second, and then if we have any discussion. So is there any discussion? Is there a motion on?
Are we separating out, we're just doing the sexual harassment policy?
Well,
yes, it's 2. Go ahead.
Well, it was all of the revisions from section 4. The bulk of the changes were in the sexual harassment policy, but the document that you received encompass changes all throughout section 4.
But will the wellness policy be a separate vote?
Yes, it'll be a separate vote, yes.
I don't have any additional questions about the sexual harassment policy or this section.
Okay,
Section
is
4.
there a motion on the floor?
I would move we approve the policy as presented by Mr. Walker.
Okay, is there a second motion on the floor for section 4 pertaining to students?
I'll
Don't
second
jump at
that
once.
motion.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Director Nolan. Any opposed? Ayes?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So 9 to 0, it passes. Moving on to the wellness policy. Attorney Eric Walker, go ahead.
Thank you. Wellness policy, we had the discussion, and I think there were a couple concerns raised. The changes that were made that are highlighted were bolding the section on extracurricular activities not being used as punishment. This was in consultation with the chairman of the Wellness Committee, Ms. Margot Bushmeyer. And Ms. Nolan pointed out a typo on bullet point 9, which is on page 3. That was corrected, and that is highlighted in your document. Now, since you got your packet, another sentence was added to under goals and standards, section 7, at the suggestion of Ms. Nolan. The sentence originally stated, allow outdoor recess when outdoor temperatures are between 35 and 95 degrees. The additional language would just be another sentence added. When indoor recess cannot be provided due to weather, students must be given at least 40 minutes of recess indoors, which must include an opportunity for socialization and unstructured play. I did route that towards Ms. Margot Bushmeyer, and she thought that was a wonderful suggestion. She wanted me to offer thanks for the suggestion, and so that was another change to the policy since you've received your packets. If there aren't, I think there might have been a typo. Well, no, I don't think so. Just that addition was made to the wellness policy.
Okay, and then was the other piece added about not being able to withhold the recess right as punishment?
Well, that was
I didn't
noted,
see that language.
That was noted in section 6 in that section already, and what Ms. Bushmeyer and I decided was to bold that and leave it bold.
Good deal.
Yes, just to stand out.
Director Nolan, thank you.
Well, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just closing the loop with Attorney Walker. Go ahead.
And I just wanted to make sure on that added language. Did it read when outdoor recess cannot be provided due to weather?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure that we were straight on indoor and outdoor. So that's it. All right.
Okay. Director Wood, do you have anything on this?
No, I don't. I was just waiting on a vote.
Okay. Well, guess what? If you're willing to make Attorney Eric Walker, have you concluded?
I have concluded. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Director Wood, would you like to make a motion?
Sure. I move that we adopt section 5.29, the wellness policy, as presented tonight.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I will second that policy.
Okay.
That motion.
And do we have any opposed? Okay, and they have the ayes. Okay, 9-0, that passes. Attorney Eric Walker, we appreciate your work in getting the revisions done and updating us on what have changed since then. And we appreciate you and your staff. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So now I'm going to send it over to, we have a few, see if there's any closing remarks. Superintendent Poor, I'm gonna send it to you. I only have a couple things to say, and if any, and then we'll go down the line. Superintendent?
Thank you. Thanks for a good meeting tonight. Appreciate all of you. And again, it's another celebration of Board Appreciation Month, so thank you. The reminder that tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, we have our opportunity to engage with our local legislators, and that will begin at 9. And those of you, if you do have a schedule problem, it will be taped. This will be a Zoom session between the participants, and then it will be created as a webinar so that like if media choose to watch it or anyone want to watch it later on, it will be available for people to access on our webpage. So we have it set up, I think, in a fashion that allows us to have a really good conversation with our legislators, and we've got a strong response from that group to be here tomorrow in the Zoom meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. Fellow board directors, do you guys have any closing comments about what have our meeting or anything moving forward in between our next meeting, our next time we talk? Okay. So with that, I want to thank you all for a really good, productive meeting. And it's 9:13 right now, and until we meet again, I just want to thank you guys for serving. Our district is a very robust, beautiful, complicated situation, and I'm totally appreciative of you all hanging in there and climbing this steep learning curve. And I want to also encourage you guys to, right as House Bill 1218 have all of our attentions, and we're all having conversations in different ways, and the community's engaged, we also need to hone in on that engagement of community to make sure that they, well, it's going to be an individual choice, but to stay engaged beyond this hot topic, as well as look at bills that are currently in Education Committee that will have a direct effect on school board members, us, no matter as we govern, because all of those bills are not the best for us, as we are one of the most scrutinized boards, even though we are volunteer and we are elected. So just pay attention to some of those bills. I don't have anything else. I really do want you guys to start thinking about what does that look like if you all share the same sentiment of Little Rock School District being a civil rights school district. We have our 9 stars right on our logo, which represents the Little Rock 9. And with that, just want to throw that out there. You guys, we have had a great meeting, and I appreciate you all. And it is 9:15, and if there's nothing else, we can we get a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Thank you, Director Woods. Can we get a second?
I will second that.
Thank you, Director Vice President Wilson. Any opposed? Okay, the yays, yay.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you guys, and you guys have a wonderful, wonderful night.
Too. Thank you, guys.
Good night.
Good night.